too crazy. I'm
Of
joking. You can
course
say
not. Of
anything.
course not. No, of course not. Of course
Okay,
not.
we're all for crazy
Yeah.
stuff. But how you been?
I've been doing good, man. I've been doing good. I just got back from a trip. It's went pretty well.
Okay.
Just back to starting up the whole content thing again. What
Yeah.
about you?
I'm, yeah, I'm coming off that shit. Fuck doing content, bro.
It's
I hate
annoying.
that shit.
I get
It's
it.
just like it's just I mean,
Mm.
tons of real shit. And like if other people who don't do content don't get it, but it's just like when you put like a lot and like this kind of it feels weird saying this because my latest video has been doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But when you for all the other videos, when you put like a lot of work into something and it's just
Mm-hmm.
not getting the type of views that that's commensurate with the work that you put in, it
Yeah.
just feels suckish. So I'm just
It
like,
does. It does. I can't disagree with that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I felt that way, especially when I was making the Bugs Bunny versus Luffy video, because I
yeah,
thought that like it's a little bit interesting, it's a little bit different, but ultimately, it kind of feels bad because it's like a little bit out of the norm for like what you'd normally see in at least in like this side of the internet. But
yeah.
I mean, whether or not like people agreed with the outcome of the video, I didn't really care. But I was really just more so like just surprised that like man, 11,000 views it's after like a couple of weeks. Like damn,
Yeah,
that
no,
shit hurts.
exactly.
But it's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like you gotta like just keep moving on ahead, man. Gotta see what
Um,
works. You guys gotta see what works at that point. How's everybody?
yeah, but
Oh, I'm bad. What are you saying?
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Say hello to
uh,
your chat and all that.
yeah. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, no. So we got a collab going on today. Here with Steinixos, another wonderful power scaler and YouTuber. How you doing, man? Besides that, like, so how you doing, bro? Doing good though.
Um, yeah, I mean, apart from that, we're chilling. Let me
Chilling.
just make sure my chat can hear you as well. Did someone say, can you guys hear Eon fine, by the way? Yeah, and I don't know, like, you know, I mean, it will hopefully do more in the future so we can
Mm-hmm.
kind of figure it out, but I'm not really sure if both of us streaming is the best or if one person, but we could figure that out at some point in the future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, they aren't saying anything, so he said they just said you're a little quiet, but I don't know. That might be something on my side.
You can probably raise my volume. I know that you were a little loud for me, so I had to lower you. But yeah, it should be fine.
Let's see. Let's see. Uh,
But yeah, nah, man. Yeah, it really sucks to like get like a really, just like a really well put together video too. You know what I mean, man?
yeah. No, exactly. And like I'm always like in my Discord, I'm
Mm-hmm.
always like it always sounds like I'm dick riding myself. But like
Yeah.
I know that I put out some of the best shit on the fucking internet. The level of thought I go into my shit is just
Oh,
like I'm
100%.
like I know like other people are because when I look at some of my videos, I'm just like, bruh, come on now. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, so it gets also dispiriting. So I'm just gonna take a break and just like,
Yeah, give yourself like that.
reset.
Yeah, yeah. Give yourself that time to like reset yourself. I agree, man.
Yeah. All right, but the people aren't here to hear us talk about my struggles. So I don't really like. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I would just like work with whatever the chat wanted us to talk with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you have any specific topics that you want to go over as well, I was watching some of your videos trying to because I know some people probably don't want us to just be agreeing with everything that we say. Like they want some disagreement.
Yeah,
So I
for
was trying to
sure.
find if there was something that I disagree with you about, but I didn't. I don't know. So let's start with
It's all
we
good.
can start anywhere. We can start anywhere.
Um, I got a question before. I remember sending you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like when we were talking. I sent you a an idea that some of my subscribers had brought up. Some of my Discord members. One of
Yeah.
them was like about like the everything is canon DB stuff. Did you have any thoughts on that specifically?
Is that a thing where the author of well not the because I guess the actual author died, but the other author or
Yeah.
the guy who draws it said that everything is canon. Is that it?
Um, it
Like
was
he considers everything to
what's
be
it was a whole thing with like I forgot what his name was. Toyotaro said
yeah
Toyotaro everything in Dragon Ball is canon. Yeah, it's something about like everything. It was basically a statement that he made for himself. He basically said, I like almost every Dragon Ball work that exists. To me, everything is more or less canon because I've seen everything. After all, it's not really my place to know who determines what is canon and what isn't. I think it's better if each fan decides for themselves what is canon or not canon in their
Yeah,
own
all that
continuity.
is
I think it's like,
all
uh-huh.
all that is silly. It's just silly. Like, it's from my perspective, it's just like they're like I feel like people try to play these games with themselves where they want something to be true, so they latch on to every single thing that
Yeah,
could possibly make it true.
right.
Obviously, it's not the case that everything is canon. Like even if the Dragon Ball author said that, like, no, that's obviously not the case. Like, you could possibly make the case for that for let's say all the Goku stuff, all the Dragon Ball stuff, like by itself,
Yeah.
like. But like when you start getting into crossover, like the One Piece, Dragon Ball, and that other anime crossover, like you can't just be like, okay, all of that. It's obviously not all canon. And then even if it were all canon, then it's just like canon things can have different timelines. So it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, which timeline are you using? Which
Yeah,
timeline of the
yeah.
canon are you using? So it's just like it's just silly,
I think
especially if anyone. Go ahead.
no, I think it's like one of these like special situations where like okay, Dragon Ball for example has probably one of the larger splitting. I wouldn't say like larger splitting timelines, but more or less just like larger splitting canons across like let's say most shonen, where you have the Capsule Corp stuff, you have the original Z through like Dragon Ball through Z through Super and now even Daima. You have like the whole like GT stuff, then you have like the Xeno stuff, the Super Dragon Ball Heroes, like it even then someone like the video games, not even like the Xenoverse stuff, but like even someone like
Yeah.
the video games, like the ones where like all the characters like fuse into a single entity. It I think this is more or less a situation where like is it all technically canon? Well, it is all Dragon Ball. It all is part of like the Dragon Ball IP, right? But I think it falls more into like this idea that like, is it all canon to the main timeline, which is what people usually discuss when they're referencing, like Dragon Ball stuff, right? Like I'm fine with saying GT is canon, but I'm also fine with saying that like GT has its own canon, right? Like
Mhm.
GT canon is not the same canon as Super canon, which is not the same canon as Xenoverse, and so on and so forth. It makes
Yeah,
things a
exactly.
bit too complicated then at that point, and I feel like if we're going to have like a discussion about like like well everything is canon, then at that point we're getting to like more discussions of like composite characters, which I've never
Yeah.
been a fan of, not even just
Yeah.
because of like the whole like contradictions between like feats and stuff, more so because it's like I don't know, composite characters just feel uh, they're not my favorite thing to discuss when it comes to like, especially when it comes to like power scaling.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100% agreed there. Like and again, if someone like makes I'm cool for any type of discussion that a person
Right.
wants to have, but they need to like understand it clearly. Like two things, like two things can be canon, but like you can't necessarily like they don't necessarily go together unless you're forcing them together. So
Yeah.
if you're just going to be like, as you said, I'm just going to make a composite of all the best feats of this character, sure. But then trying to act like the character is naturally just a composite of all of their best feat and none of their worst. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of silly. Like there's one, like for example, there's
Mm-hmm.
comics for example that have a bunch of different branches. You have a version of Thanos that needs to ride in a fucking helicopter,
Right.
and then you have a version of Thanos that is the wiping off wiping out the whole universe. Like we could make a fight with that version of Thanos that needs to do the helicopter, and we could
Yeah.
fight that version but it's just like it just needs to be clear. And like
Yeah, it creates a lot of issues, especially when you have things like Thanos, for example. But then you also have like, I don't know who to be like a very good example. You can maybe say like I don't know. Let's use this as an example, like Deadpool, right? Like there's a whole, I think there's like a whole like run where like Deadpool kills the entire Marvel universe, but then there's
yeah.
also like runs where like Deadpool can't even throw hands with like someone like Thanos. One of my comments actually said like, he said it's up to the fans to decide what's canon to them, so that creates a mess of people arguing something is canon to them, while others say it argues it's not canon to them. And I agree. I agree with this kind of sentiment. They actually brought up a very good point because it does cause like this whole issue where like if you give the fans the ability to say what is and isn't canon, then it creates I guess it creates like a bit of an issue, not just like in terms of like semantics, but just in terms of like, you know, just overall debates, whether it's power scaling related or whether it's just having conversations about Dragon Ball as a whole, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there has to be an established canon. I mean, you can basically just say that like the main continuity is, you know, just the Z,
Yeah.
the ball through Z through super stuff. But yeah, if you start saying all this extra stuff, I think it just creates like a lot of like non-faith arguments. If you say like all this extra stuff is like all of it is canon, or like if you say like anything is canon, then like I can basically say I don't know, the stuff from Dragon Ball Fusion is all true, or Dragon Ball what the fuck was it? Dragon Ball Evolution, right? Like I don't want to talk about that version of Dragon Ball if we have to discuss this whole fucking thing, you know what I mean?
No, exactly. And it all
Yeah.
has to kind of fit into like, especially when you're scaling a character who grows. Like for example, like if I'm scaling Luffy, there's a clear kind of continuity of Luffy from one point to a next to a next. Right? If you start like bringing in other things, like where does that fit in the timeline of the character? You know,
Mhm.
like which like I was watching one of your visit video today. I think it was maybe Madara versus Kaido. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know you spoke a bit again about, for example, the Madara who fought against Hashirama,
Mhm.
and then the Madara who got some of the Hashirama cells, and then the Madara who absorbed the God tree,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then the sequential stages thereafter. Now,
Yeah.
let's say there was some other version of Madara where Madara like was like, you know, just making something up, was able to fight with Superman, and he
Yeah.
beat the whole Justice League.
Yeah.
Okay, even if that was part of the canon, where does it fit in the timeline of Madara's progression?
Yeah.
Like, is it before the Hashirama thing? And then that wouldn't make any sense because, you know, how would he be?
Hashirama, yeah. It
Yeah,
just
he'd be weaker. He'd be stronger than weaker. No, it doesn't make any sense. So like
for sure.
again, it's really just about like making it just super clear what the the specifics of the character that you're talking about. And if a person wants to have like a composite discussion,
Mhm.
that can be had, but acting like the character themselves are always a composite, like
Yeah,
that's silly.
Death Battle tends to do this. I've noticed with a lot of their characters, they tend to make like these composite versions of their characters, or like bring up like different parts of like their continuity, which I think like for what Death Battle specifically tries to do, while I don't care, again, I just don't care for the idea of composite characters because I feel like, especially, I just feel like it's not so much like disingenuous, but like if you're gonna include like these most powerful versions of these characters, you know, there's also versions of the characters that also have like really bad or weak feats. But I think it's fine for what they do because they mostly do it for entertainment. I mean, as we all do, you know, as I feel like as content creators, we do it in and of itself for the entertainment, at least a portion of it. But I feel like you know it creates a bit of, I guess not so much that it creates like a bit of a disparity, but more so it creates like this whole situation where like they do phrase it in such a way where like, yes, I guess they have done, or at least in the past they have done like versions where like they've explained like, yes, we're using like composite versions of the characters and stuff like that, but it's not something that's like, you know, unless you know enough about power scaling to know the difference between a composite character and a non-composite character, people are just going to assume that like, oh yeah, this version of Superman really is this powerful, or Superman as a whole is just really this powerful, or Goku as a whole is really this powerful, right? Like it does, I don't know, it feels weird.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, as you said, the reason they do it is they're just trying to. The people who watch Death Battle are just trying to see the most powerful version of these characters, right? So that's why they do it without much disclaimer. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there.
One of my commenters also brought up a very good point that it also makes it a bit of a mess because there was a crossover with One Piece and Toriko.
Which, One Piece, Toriko, and Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like obviously, that's not part of it. Like even if it was, there's no point. Like you can't fit that Luffy that is going. Well, I mean, we could have discussions about whether Luffy can actually fight Goku, but like putting that aside, there's no. You can't. You don't know where that Luffy is in the timeline. You can't fit him. Like when did Luffy get? It's just yeah.
It's a weird. It's also not like a weird state because it's like they're all existing within the same planet, which then brings up the discussion of like, Which actually, well, for one, yeah, they were all living within like the same planet. Like Goku's planet, Goku's Earth is supposed to be the same as Blue Planet, which is supposed to be the same as Toriko's version of Earth. Which
Yeah.
again, it's supposed to like throw it into like a point in time where it's like post Z. Since this was years after Z, but before Super, so it'd have to fit like some point within that timeline. And Goku only had Super Saiyan 3, so you'd have to assume that it's before that, which means that like for Goku to be fighting alongside Luffy and Toriko, that would have to make them, and for them to be able to like match the power of his like Super Saiyan 3 Kamehameha, that would have to mean that they're like galaxy level or some shit. You know, it's just crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I mean, to be clear, my problem with it is that because like I'm a big proponent that One Piece characters are much stronger than people think. So it's not even necessarily the case that I don't think Luffy is not galaxy level. Luffy could be galaxy level.
Yeah,
It's just that it's just that
it contradicts a lot.
yeah, it doesn't fit. And
Yeah.
try to force it just to have some agenda to prove that Luffy's strong, for example, that's silly to me. I don't scale like that. I don't
Yeah.
scale trying to start at the end point and then trying to find things to justify the end point.
Yeah, yeah.
I look at the evidence and try to go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big issue when it comes to like just power scaling as a whole, because people make a lot, and I really do mean like they make a lot of assumptions based on they make a lot of assumptions based on you as a content creator, especially when it comes to like power scaling. Mostly because like they will disagree with you, which I mean, I've told people, I've actually mentioned this in my last stream. I'm fine with people disagreeing with me. If they simply do not care for like any of my takes or anything, they're also more than welcome to not be part of the channel. But like, or at least participate in the channel. But like, it becomes an issue where people are like, oh, he's just glazing for the sake of glazing, these Naruto fans or these like One Piece fans or Bleach fans, XYZ. And I'm like, I mean, you can view it that way. I can't stop you from it, but at the same time, what I'm really trying to get people to understand is that most of my takes, or actually no, pretty much every single one of my takes, it's just a genuine take. Like I have no agenda to really push on. So obviously most of my content is Naruto versus One Piece. Since it's which depending on where you scale the verses or whatever, can be either a massive disparity. They can either be very close, massive disparity, etc. But like,
it's a massive disparity.
yeah,
That would be the only disagreement I have with some of your videos.
yeah,
I feel like, and I know why you do it, because I do it as well. You want to appear as fair as possible,
yeah.
but being 100% real.
Yeah, no, it's not close. It's not close. Yeah, no. It's great because it's like, okay. I actually had this discussion brought up yesterday where people were like, okay, but so we were talking about they brought up like the whole like this GARP statement where from I don't know if it was like promotional materials or it was like a V-Ray card or like a data book statement. I think it was a V-Ray card, but it was basically saying that like the power to corner Roger is still alive and well, and they used that to like say that like Garp is basically as close to his prime as possible. Which
again, listen, whenever people say things like that, again, I have a very short fuse, and I think I mentioned this to you last time.
Yeah.
Like I easily just categorize people into stupid boxes and reasonable boxes.
Yeah.
Like if you're reading a series where the characters themselves literally tell you, I am not as strong as I was before. Like Garp literally says that my old age is making me weaker. Rayleigh literally says my old age is making me weaker. Like every single one of these characters have literally said that. But you're going to be like, oh no, but this data book statement from this random you're retarded. I just don't need to speak to you. So it's like I don't. So that like I feel like. I don't know which stage of your life you're in, but like I just don't have the bandwidth to deal with that nonsense. Like like most adults with common sense should be able to separate this out, right? So I don't even deal with that, but I understand that you're probably more gracious than I am dealing with this nonsense. That's why you give it the time of day.
Yeah, my thing is that like I mean, I'll just be honest. Like at least for me, I have like a lot of patience for this kind of stuff because like you know what it is. I'll put it like this. In my own personal life, there's always been like a lot of like argumentations, all that stuff. You know, like people are constantly trying to like just debate on the smallest thing. So I guess I've just built up a bit of like a tolerance for like this kind of stuff. And I guess it's just more or less like trying to see if like we can come to an understanding. With like the Garb stuff, right? It was, the statement doesn't necessarily say, at least it doesn't literally state that he's like in his prime, right? As an example, right? So then it says that the power to corner Roger, and I mean, him and Roger have been fighting each other for, as far as we know, decades. So at least to me, it just means that like, if he can corner Roger, but he's never been able to capture him, it could be referring to cornering him at any point in their life, especially when they weren't at their prime. Not to say that it isn't the case, but I'm just saying that it isn't definitive evidence, right? So one of the things that like I brought up was that I feel like when considering like the validity of certain, let's say, statements, or let's say in this case we'll just say statements, because one of my comments before was actually about, let me see if I can find it. Could you use feats from non-canon material if it doesn't contradict the main source? This was a conversation that we had last night. This was not last night, but last stream, where it was more or less just about like the idea that, like, okay, for example, if you were to ask me personally, right, I would use. It was actually about like Gamma Bunta as well and his height. It's like. We go by like I usually go by the main source, right? So I go by the source material, which in this case would be the manga, and I like to consider the anime as well, because the anime actually allows one to flesh out a bit more what's in the manga, whether it's through like pacing, not always pacing, but also when it's like specific like canon arcs, right? I don't consider like the filler arcs to be anything. Those to me don't mean anything. But when it comes to like canon stuff, especially when in fights, for example, I like to just consider all of that part of the canon, right? Because it's just an expansion of what the on what the manga is, although albeit unless it's, you know, vastly changing what the manga was trying to imply. But anyway, so the point I brought up was that like I would always look at like source material first, and then I would look at supplementary materials right afterwards, right? So like novels, data books, so on and so forth, right? If, for example, in this case, the Garp statement said, he's the power to corner Roger is alive and well, but we know that narratively speaking, it's even a consistent case that all characters who are at least have reached an age beyond, like, let's say like their mid to late 70s to 80s, they have got not heavily, but they've at least lost a good portion of the power that they've had in their prime. Another example of this is like, for example, Kirin in Naruto, where like the source material says that it's not light speed.
Listen. Exactly. Listen. That's what I'm saying. Niggas are just being dumb. Niggas are purposely being obtuse. Like this is what I'm saying. Like that's why I just don't deal with this. If the Ian, this is the dumbest shit, and I've made the video about this, the power scaling problem, where this was one of the main point. Like, if the source material itself says that Kirin is lightning speed, Sasuke literally verbatim says, all I'm doing is just pulling down lightning, and Zetsu says this is fucking lightning speed. You're telling me the source material is telling you all of this. There's no contradiction, completely sound. But you're going to be like, oh wait, but no. Even though the source material says this random data book elsewhere says that it's actually light speed. Yeah. These people are just like, I completely understand what you're saying in terms of like you just want to try and reach an agreement with these people. Yeah. But and like when I first started out like doing YouTube, I used to respond to every fucking comment, because I'm just like, surely. Like these people are just like actually just being like I assumed everybody was like me, so they're well-meaning people, maybe they just don't understand certain things, but no, Ian, like people are just being retarded. They want something to be true, and like they'll ignore anything to the opposite of it, right? They'll ignore anything to the opposite of it. No amount of young Kakashi cut a lightning is going to change the fact that Kirin is lightning speed. No amount of that. Like it is just what it is. And like again, people, it's again in the power scaling problem video, it's like people just throw their understanding of literature out of the way. I don't know about like, I don't know if most people don't go to school, but I actually went to school, right? And like the Garp statement that he said, the power to corner Roger is alive and well. Obviously, that's just meaning, for our old man, he's still strong. That's not literally saying, oh my fucking god, he's literally at the same level he was before. Or those myriad of data book statements, like with the Naruto statement, Naruto, inside Naruto is a power to burn the world to ash or some shit like that. That is just saying that, Kuruma is fucking strong. Again, these people, they're not like that's the thing that I've come to understand. Most of these people, they're not trying to scale properly, right? Because again, like if you were actually using that standard, then the fucking the statement where in the Naruto database where it says that Madara's fire jutsu can burn everything in the world, and then if you thought about dodge it, it literally says it is impossible to actually dodge it. Clear, like people understand that that's obvious. No, you can obviously dodge it.
Yeah,
Yeah, like these niggas are just being like again. This is all power scaling is. These
Yeah.
niggas just want something to be true.
I
They want their favorite verse to be the strongest, so they throw away all their common sense,
mhm.
any critical thinking. And it's fucking retarded. I'm sorry, you have to go off.
It's okay. It's okay. I would only ask like not to throw on the R word mostly, but that's basically
Oh,
fine.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
I'm
you're
no,
fine.
no,
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 no, no,
no,
it's
you're
completely
good.
fine. It's a fine. It's fine. I just don't know how like YouTube monetization will also handle
Yeah,
that.
no.
But yeah,
No, yeah, no problem, no problem.
I know I completely understand the rant. It's definitely frustrating, especially when like for example, somebody here brought up and I'll cover this comment afterwards, but somebody here brought up, for example, like how they casually use the data books to upscale Naruto characters, yet casually downplay one by saying they couldn't catch a guy who can run at 200 kilometers per hour. The whole Gazelle Man stuff, right? I've actually brought this up in my One Piece is faster than light video, and I remember months and months ago I also checked out your One Piece is faster than light video. I was having this discussion mostly with like my mods and stuff, where we were just talking about like just speed quantification in power scaling. And here's the thing, right? If I were to sit down, if I were to sit down with somebody, right? If I were to sit down with somebody and we're to talk about like, okay, Naruto and Luffy, just are they both FTL? I would say yes, right? Because if we have to talk about like, let's say one thing. Actually, let me start off by saying this first. One thing that I feel like people are constantly just ignoring when it comes to power scaling is the idea that narrative isn't all that important when it comes to scaling. But the thing about narrative that like is most important, and the reason why people should consider this more often than they probably do, is that the narrative is essentially the author's intent, right? It's not about your interpretation. It's mostly like what the author is genuinely trying to convey, which actually leaves the least amount of interpretation possible, right? Because for example, I can possibly quantify, and this actually goes back to like a comment that was brought up before, a question for you that was like, the gear 2 plus gear 3 amp multiplier is more justified post time skip because gear 3 attacks and pre-time skip seem rather unrefined and sluggish, and gear 2's power comes from its speed. For example, right, like I'm sure that like on a low ball you can quantify, let's say like gear 4, right, on like the lowest low ball possible to be like a 30 times amp, right? So then you just do 30 times amp times let's say base Luffy from the rooftop. You could say like he's 9,000 times faster than light, right? Do I believe personally that narratively speaking Luffy is 9,000 times the speed of light? Not necessarily, because I don't think that Oda himself really cares how fast Luffy is. He just has to establish that he's faster than light. In the same case as Naruto. Do I think that Naruto is even 100 times the speed of light? Not necessarily, right? Nothing would really lead me to quantify that, nor do I think Kishimoto himself really cares to like know how fast Naruto really is, right? He's just trying to, again, claim that Naruto is also faster than light. But when it comes to like a conversation, and I feel like people often don't like make this distinction that power scaling and versus battles and theory crafting a versus battle are two completely separate concepts, right? Like you have to power scale to do a versus battle, right? Or at least you should have some level of power scaling in order to be able to at least reach a conclusion for a versus battle. But you don't need to have anything even remotely you don't even have to have anything remotely close to a death battle in order to just power scale on its own, right? So when I'm power scaling, for example, I just have to say Luffy is faster than light. That's all I care about. I don't care about the semantics. I don't care about how fast he really is. That even in my video, I don't really quantify how fast Luffy is. But if I were to, let's say, put him in a versus battle at that point, I have to do my best to quantify it. And I feel like the issue that people have is that like more often than not the numbers that one can get just seem so out of the ordinary, and it's like yes, I agree. Do I think Luffy's literally traveling around this whole battlefield or like at these speeds? No, but this is the math that I am getting from the statements that are written inside the story, right? And it feels so weird because it's like, no, that just can't be true. It always comes down to it almost always feels like it's coming down to like an argument of incredulity where like I don't believe it, therefore it must not be true. Which, sure, fine if you want to believe that, but at that point we've just reached an impasse.
Yeah, and like so a couple of things. So first, with the Gazelle Man point specifically, again, like even people again, people are being purposefully obtuse. right? Like, even if we were to grant that Gazelle Man was actually faster than Luffy,
Yeah.
right? Faster in what way? Obviously, it would be faster in travel speed,
Yeah.
right? Like, so even if that were the case, that doesn't prevent Luffy from having a faster reaction time, having a faster combat speed and continuous combat speed and all of that.
Yeah.
So it would be moot to most discussions in the first place.
100%.
But again, we know that that's not even the case. But we know that it was just to move the story forward.
Yes.
Everybody knows that this random character isn't actually any way faster than Luffy or Sanji.
Yeah.
Sanji, the guy who can, like, it's silly.
Yeah, Sanji, the guy who can blitz, who can perception blitz a guy with raw speed in base, who can shoot beams of light. I don't know, man.
Exactly. Even before that, Sanji was perception blitzing Oven. Sanji literally moves so fast, kick Oven, save Chiffon without anybody seeing anything.
Yeah.
Right? They were looking at Gazelle Man run. They saw him, right? Sanji can obviously move much faster than that.
And he moved a large distance too, all things considered.
Exactly. So like, again, from every level of analysis, if you're not being purposely obtuse, we know this is silly.
It boils down to just whether or not you're even considering the narrative, whether or not you're even considering, well, okay, an author, right? An author has to write a story. An author has to move the story along. But if they're writing characters to always be like at their peak, always performing the most the most efficient, optimal decisions at every single point in time throughout a story, they end up writing themselves into they really do end up just writing themselves into a corner.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and like everything within a story is not meant to be power scale.
Yeah.
An author is trying to tell a story. People have this conception that, like, you know, every single thing that's on screen must be power scale. It must fit neatly into this power scaling narrative. No, like, just because you see Crocodile and Mihawk clash, that doesn't mean, oh, suddenly Crocodile's on Mihawk level. Like, every single
they
thing
always just throw the high
scaling.
end of it. Yeah, they always throw in the high end of everything, man.
So it's just like, that's silly. But then at a general level, the incredulity thing that you're talking about, like, I've been making this whole power scaling fundamental series because, like, what you're kind of realizing, there are these arguments that keep coming back up again and again and again. So this is something that I put under the fiction problem, where, you know, people say, oh, this can't happen because it's impossible because of real world physics or real world biology, or they don't believe it. It's this kind of, and I also speak about this kind of selective suspension of belief.
Yeah.
Right. So when Enel is turning to literal lightning, or Caesar Crown is in his gas form just drinking juice, that's somehow believable to people.
Yeah.
Right? They turn off their they just remember that it's fiction. But when it starts to come to people being faster and light, they're like, oh my god, no, real world physics doesn't allow that. Like, what? Like, you literally see Big Mom ripping souls.
Yeah, Big Mom
out of people.
She's also 28 feet tall.
Yeah. Exactly, and putting it into intangible inanimate object like chairs and clouds and fire, and these are all singing. And okay, but that's fine. But he's 100 times faster than light. That's where you draw the line again. It's this selective suspension of disbelief. Like, sometimes the suspension of disbelief is on, and then other times it's just conveniently off. Again, like, some people you can reason with without a doubt, and I hope that, and that's why I made this power scaling fundamental series to just point out some things for those who are reasonable.
Yeah.
But go ahead, sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, I've actually been like tinkering with the idea of also making my like how I power scale series. Not so much like a how to, more so like a how I do it. Mostly just to give people an idea of like, okay, these are things that I personally go for in terms of like how I rationalize certain aspects of things. For example, like real world physics, right? I am perfectly fine with the inclusion of real world physics for, let's say anything that's either using a closer to real world analog. For example, series that are more grounded, specifically with even like live action, right? I feel like if you're going to be going off of like the basis that something is like, for example, live action, I feel like it's completely fine. But when you're throwing into the world of like just full fiction, where characters like, for example, not even just One Piece or Bleach or Naruto, but even like JJK, which is a bit more grounded than them in some aspects, where it's like even though this may seem more grounded, even though it may seem like more low to the ground in terms of like its scaling, like these are also characters that are able to heal entirely from these wounds and are able to punch each other through fucking buildings. You could probably use real world physics to try and scale all of this, but at the end of the day, right, like my biggest issue with like real world physics, especially when it comes to like animated stuff or like more fictional variants of like, I guess, fiction, it's that like the numbers are ultimately not canon. Right.
Yep.
Like this discussion actually came up yesterday with like Gamma Bunta for sorry, not yesterday, during my stream with Gamma Bunta, right? With the idea
they're seething that Gamma Bunta is only
17 meters tall.
17.
And here's the thing, right? Like
speed.
yeah, and here's the thing, right? Like yeah, it's like here's the thing. Okay, sorry. I needed like a brain fart. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, yes, does Gamma Bunta seem huge in many of these images? 100%. Does it make sense for him to be larger? Sure, I can 100% agree to it. But that is the only canon number. If there was something in the main original canon source that stated how tall or big Gamma Bunta was, that can give me an actual scale for how big this guy is, sure, I would 100% take that over the 17-meter statement.
And let them see that, because this is the thing. This is the funny part to me. Like, there's some things in a data book that are trustworthy. Like if the birthday, like if some like biographical information, like the birthday of a character, obvious the height of the weight of the character. That's why data books exist. Yeah. That's the whole point of a data book, to give you things like that. It's not to kind of rewrite the story or for you to play around with different translations to see how you can make this word mean this thing. And no, like something clearly written, character is 17 meters, and you're going to be like, oh no, I don't like that. But then
it has to be to be bigger because the pixels on the screen said so.
It's just silly. There's a lot, like it's absolute. Again, it's just people just wanting things. And again, like in fiction, like perspective is like part of the story.
Yeah, 100%.
Things are going to seem bigger based on the perspective, right? But just because it looks bigger in this perspective, like that doesn't mean that, oh my god, you're subject. Like that's like that again. Honestly,
it also doesn't account for it also doesn't account for the human error, right? For example, if Naruto's meant to be like what 5'6" or 5'8", and Oda's and obviously like Kishimoto's drawing him around like all these giant tailed beasts and everything. Like I don't think Kishimoto or even Oda has the capacity to draw these characters every single time perfectly to scale to like these giant creatures, right? Like sometimes they'll be bigger, sometimes they'll look smaller. I don't know, man.
No, you know. Listen, you're just trying to be reasonable. Don't phrase it as you don't know. You do know. These people they just want, again, it's just a team sport. And these people just want their favorite verse to be the strongest, right? So they'll twist the things that obviously they shouldn't be twisted, and then the things that are clear facts, they'll be like, I don't accept that. It's just a team sport.
Or their interpretation of it is correct and yours is wrong, right? For example, in JJK, there's a scan of the whole Kashimo Sukuna dodging feat, right? I'd mentioned it before in my Madara versus Sukuna video that Sukuna has the ability to at least move at the speed of light, or at least at relativistic speeds in short bursts, because he was able to dodge a point-blank EM wave. People have convinced themselves, for example, in a panel, which I've said it before, I'm willing to like be wrong. I'm willing to like at least if I have not said it before, I'm willing to say it now. I'm willing to be wrong on this because people say it's an aim dodge, right? Which also doesn't go into the definition of an aim dodge because you have to move before they dodge. And say that like, okay, Sukuna, the hand is right in front of Sukuna. I have the panel up in my stream, which is why I'm describing it. But it's like,
let me open up his stream and see if I can look at it as well.
Which, as an example, right? It says like Kashimo's hand is in front of Sukuna's face, but Sukuna moved first in the next panel, and I'm just like, how are you getting Sukuna moving first though? Right? Because at least to me, all I see is attack, dodge. There's no implication that he moves first. There's no implication that he eyeballed where the attack was going to go, right? Like, especially an attack that he's never seen before. So my question then is like, what is stopping me from believing that like this is a quote unquote this is a quote unquote relativistic feat, right? I'm perfectly fine. Omi, thank you again for the 5. I'm perfectly guys. I'll go through all like the super chats and stuff right at the end of the stream. This is one of those situations where I'm like, listen, I understand why you want it to be an aim dodge or why you would look at it as an aim dodge. That's fine. That's not how I'm seeing it. And either way, like I'm not saying that like Sukuna can travel like these like across a country at the speed of light. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that characters also have the capacity to move at faster speeds in short bursts, whether it's a couple of feet, a couple of meters, it doesn't matter, right? There is such a thing as acceleration. If I can just propel my body at this kind of speed for a single instant and it like slows down massively, like say like as I'm reaching like, I don't know, a couple of feet to meters, that's also fine. That also works. You brought it up. You brought this up in one of your speed videos, right? The whole like long-term distance travel, short-term distance travel. Like I've been saying this for a minute in my videos too. Like there is such a thing as like being able to move at these massive bursts of speed in short bursts. I don't see why everything like when people think that like a character being able to travel at the speed of light means that they should be able like to circulate the entire planet. I feel like they also don't consider the fact that like, well, for one, they don't have to do that because A, the author never wanted them to do that, and B, because running, if you're able to move at these speeds, you also have to consider that most of these characters don't have infinite stamina, right? Yeah, so you would have to consider that like, well, maybe an argument as to why they don't do that is because they would run out of energy. It takes up a lot of energy to move at these speeds in the first place, not just to be able to burst yourself forward, but your own, personal reserves.
I completely agree with you, but you don't even have to do this because again, like not everything needs to, like you don't need to have an explanation for everything, right? Like the author doesn't make Oda doesn't make Kizaru go around the world 20 times over simply because Oda just doesn't want to. That doesn't mess with the story in any way, right? Again, it's people understand this. Like when Oda says that Brook, the talking skeleton, who's only bones and a soul, can still have his hair because he has strong follicles. Does anyone sit down and say, this ruins the story? This makes no sense. Yeah. That's actually foolish. No, they don't, because they understand fiction. Yeah. Right?
Or so, when, like...
again, like, I don't, like, again, that's why I made these specific fundamental videos, so I don't have to go through this. Like, again, we know this. We know all of this, but people are just being silly. And again, the thing about like fiction is people need to understand fiction is a sort of thing where it can share certain factors with reality, but that doesn't mean it needs to share the limits that reality that reality 100%, have, right? 100%. So a mirror in both the fictional world and the real world can actually reflect things. Yeah. Like that's shared. But then in fiction, you have mirrors that can serve as transport to different places, like Brule's mirror. You have mirrors that can steal people's souls, right? Yeah. Fiction can go above reality. Gravity can affect both tangible things in both the physical, in both the real world and fictional world. Yeah. But then in fictional world, it can also go above this real world restriction and like affect things like soul, steal powers. So it's just like understanding that characters, you can share real world light speed, right? Light can have light speed in both the real world and fictional world, but because it's fiction, it can go above that, and you can have characters that move above light speed. Like again, like this is basic stuff. Like if people who don't, I'll grant that some people who don't power scale, they'll not know some. That's fine. But like most of these people are just being obtuse. It is
and I also feel like no, my apologies. And I also feel like it's one of these matters where it's like. I've said this so many times before, and I feel like at this point I might as well just coin this, maybe just put out some content where it's like power scale really is just all about interpretation, right? I've never told anybody that like, okay, if you use like real world physics, you use like pixel calcs and stuff like that, you are just inherently wrong, right? Like I've never gone out of my way to at least tell somebody that. I've always said that like you can believe in that kind of scaling, that is completely fine. And I've had people say then you're just not scaling right, you just don't know how to power scale then if you're not doing these things. And I'm like, well, here's the reason why I don't do these things, right? Here's the reason why I don't. It's very simple. In many of my videos, especially like in the earlier ones, if you go back, even like the Kaido versus Madara one, like I did go with like some pixel scaling stuff that I got from like versus Battle Wiki, because I'm not the type of guy that like I know how to do all this kind of math, right? I don't know how to do all this stuff. I don't know how to get these numbers, X, Y, Z. And for the people that do, hey, if you can get all these values and you can get them consistently, that's all perfectly fine. But it was actually comments that I received during at the time that really made me consider, like, you know what, at least for like the way that I power scale, I like to power scale as to like what is most convincing to me, right? Like if I can like gather this information and put together, if I can gather all of this information from all of these canon sources and put together, like, let's say like an argument, the claim, etc. And
Yeah.
I usually, all my claims are usually made at least from the basis that, does this make sense to me? What are the counter arguments that I can think up of? Whenever I'm actually having a discussion with like my mods or some of my members on my Discord chat, what ends up happening is that, like, you know, sometimes they make a claim or whatever, and sometimes sometimes I play like devil's advocate, but I do that because I play devil's advocate with myself all the time, because I'm trying to see, okay, how can I, or how would somebody that's like on the opposite end of the spectrum would like generate this answer? So then I'm like, okay, am I convinced by this? That's kind of how I go about things, right? So when it came to like the whole pixel scaling stuff, I'm like, you know, in a sense, this could work, and even if the numbers are consistently correct, you know, there's probably reason to believe that, like, okay, yeah, sure, Madra's meteor falling down from the sky is multi-continental, or the tailed beast blowing up all of these mountains are actually island level. That's all fine, but then the question is that number canon? Are those values that you are getting, if the author were to look at them, would they say, no, yeah, this is true? That's my issue, right?
I think this is where I'd probably disagree with you.
Yeah.
I feel like most authors are basic power scalers, in the sense that like they understand the importance of power scaling, that, you know, the basic premise that, you know, characters need to get stronger as the story progresses, you know, because escalating, like, you need, so for example, you need stronger enemies to really test your main characters, things like that. So like the at the most fundamental level, you could say they're basic power scalers, but most authors aren't like power scalers like what online power scalers are. The non-cringe online power scalers are. They're not like, if most authors, like, if you ask like Oda or the DBZ author or anybody, is this character actually faster? Like, they're probably going to say no, right?
Yeah.
If you ask like most of these authors, are these characters quote unquote multi-continental? They're probably going to say no. Like, that's not
a thing that they're like necessarily going to like, unless the author, it's not a thing that they're necessarily going to care for, right? Because they're mostly just caring about like the scaling of their own story, and they're just mostly trying to just craft how the hierarchy from like the short end to like the high end is going to be. And I understand that, but I mean it more so in the case that, like, okay, for example, right, Naruto, there's a very famous Naruto light speed scale pixel scaling feat where it's like, oh, when Naruto dodged the Haki, he's 72 times faster than light, right? So people from then on went on to say, so then people from then on went on to say, they're like, oh yeah, well, Naruto by the time he gets KCM is 72 times faster in light. Okay, sure. My question is that number canon? Is there anything in that story, not the numbers you got, anything in the story that implies that number's canon? If the answer is no.
So I agree with you. There. Like, looking at the story, looking at the story that the author has said, oh, does this kind of match with the story? The reason why I separated from the author themselves is because sometimes authors are actually wrong about their stories in terms of like what they've done, and that's why the retcons happen a lot of times. For example, I've seen where I don't remember the exact source right now, but I think the author of one of the Flash said that he was like he was less than a certain speed, and like when you take that specific Flash and look at one of the things that specific Flash has done, like not some other version of like the specific Flash that they were in charge of, the Flash was clearly above that speed. So that's what I'm saying, like, the authors aren't power scale, even like they put things on the paper. It's as our job as power scalers is to look at the things that are on paper, the things that are in the story, and say, does this make sense? I agree with you, what you're saying. Like, if I'm saying that Naruto is, for example, 1 million times faster than light, and I look in the story and he's like struggling against, let's say, you know, something that's moving at the speed of sound, I'm going to be like, clearly, no, that's silly. Right?
We talked about this. We talked about this before. And there's also, like, you know, the panels, like, for example, Rock Lee dodging his own shadow. In this case, as a matter of fact,
again, that's all dumb. That's all dumb. Like, people are just
Ro-
like,
Ro-
go ahead.
No, yeah, like
It's the same thing with Bleach.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uryu
Blitz
dodged.
his-
He blitzed his own shadow in like the Soul Society, but then like I actually asked one of my, and this is why I say like I like to use the anime as well, right? Because I'm like, okay,
just
Uryu.
obtuse.
Okay, like
Like,
if you look
do
at the
you
manga
ever-
panel, sure,
Go
but
ahead.
then if you look at the anime, or at least like the anime, it shows that like no, the light goes away, the shadow goes away as soon as he does as well, as soon as he like performs his speed movement, right? It's like they could.
In
I'll
my
let you
most
go, yeah.
recent video about the speed problems,
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of
yeah.
the fundamentals, I don't even give this the time of day. I just say it's silly. And if you actually like just look at contextual scaling, then it's obviously not the case. So for example, Bleach, because that's something, even though I don't make a lot of video about, I actually
Mm-hmm.
know a lot about the scaling. Like what's his name? The Snake Eye guy's Gin. His
Yeah.
Bankai is massively hypersonic, the speed of sound. Like
Yeah, I've been
you're
told
telling
this.
you're no, and that's without a doubt. Like that, I could go down that whole pathway. But like you're telling me that early Uryu, early Uryu at the beginning of the series is
Yeah.
faster than this captain. And let's even put that aside. Let's say you I'll eventually make videos about all of this. I'm just, well, maybe not. I might not make videos. I might just quit. But
No,
but
don't
like,
quit, man.
let's say in one of the data book it says that Ichigo moves like lightning speed.
Yeah.
Now this is obvious. This is obviously a simile. But let's actually say that Ichigo fighting Byakuya was lightning speed.
Yeah.
You're telling me that Uryu, like, because what they're saying is that Uryu glitching in his own shadow, right? And this was Uryu against Mayuri. So again, this is about in the same arc as Ichigo fighting Byakuya.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that Uryu is like massively faster than Byakuya
Mm-hmm.
and Ichigo, like, because they would only be lightning speed, but
Yeah.
Uryu is light speed. That is silly. That again, contextual scaling just disproves all of this.
Right.
But again, even without knowing any of the context, like, have you ever heard anybody say, "Oh, like when someone makes after images of themselves, for example, that proves that they're beyond light speed"?
I don't
like,
know how that would exactly even make it. You know, I don't even know how that exactly that would like
That's-
rationalize it. But it's not even just that, right? It's, for example, like the Ceros, right? Like the Menos Grande Cero, where it's called spiritual light. So people say
Yeah.
like, well, it's light speed. But then I'm like, so let me get this straight, right? People are easily convinced that because it has the word light in it, that a Cero
it's just
it's automatically light speed. But then I get comments about people saying, well, Luffy dodging a beam of light that a pacifista shot while that's already traveling through the air, ready to hit him. And people are saying, well, Luffy aim dodge, but how can he aim dodge when it's already traveling towards him? Well, it's not actually it's not actually light speed. As a matter of fact, it's never even stated to be light speed. I'm like, but they're stated to be replicates of replicated from Kizaru's light. They're like, okay, they're replicated. That doesn't mean they're as fast as light. Well, they're stated to be light, but that doesn't mean that the beam itself is light speed. I'm like, so I'm supposed to then believe that, like, for example, this quote unquote spiritual light is light speed, well, for nothing else. But I'm supposed
again.
It's crazy, man. It's frustrating.
So-
it's really frustrating, man.
This is especially frustrating as a content creator, and the
Yeah.
reason that is that we're exposed to all sides of the argument. So on one side, you'll be exposed to the as you said, Bleach people saying that everything that's called light is just light speed, and then you'll in the same breath on another video just hear people saying, "Oh, but One Piece is not light speed," despite all that, right? The average person, like, they don't have to deal with that, like, being constantly inundated with all of these. Like, on one hand, like, for example, one of the most interesting things to me is that, like, whenever I'm around One Piece fandom, you'll have people complaining that Luffy's too strong.
Yeah.
But then anywhere outside of the One Piece fandom, like, everybody's saying that Luffy's weaker than he actually is. So I'm hearing the complete opposite things, and I have to be arguing against both of these people. So it's especially frustrating as a content creator. I understand that. So with this spiritual light thing, and again, fundamentals of that's why I made like these specific videos, because I recently made the speed problem, and this goes over all of that. Again, you have two type of things in fiction. You have the natural thing and then the fake thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you have fake elements that are constructed out of chakra, out of magic, out of spiritual energy, or whatever. Then you have the natural things like Kizaru, Logias, right? Now, obviously, if something is a natural thing, it would make sense that they have the properties of the real thing. With One Piece specifically, we don't even have to assume that, because we like, you could go through boatloads of evidence of the Oda saying that Logias have the properties of elements.
Yeah.
The characters saying they have the properties of elements. The road to Laftel saying they have the property of elements. Vegapunk calling the lasers electromagnetic thing.
Yeah.
Usopp pointed out that the light is natural light. With One Piece, like One Piece. And this is why I know it's frustrating for you, because it's frustrating for me as well, because I've been through your same arc. One Piece is, and you're always trying to be humble, but keeping it a stack, One Piece has the best
One Piece
for speed scaling.
One Piece has light speed, the best light speed
else.
scaling. You know, because like, okay, for example, one of my commenters, Kaiokrim. By the way, what's up, Kaiokrim? And thank you again, Omi. Yeah, this is why I think light speed in Bleach starts at the Negacion, since it just says light with no room for interpretation. So the light.
All that is nonsense. Like, it's spiritual light. You can't just assume the fake thing has the real thing. One of the things that get brought up in the novel, for example, is that Candice Catnip's arrow, she makes spiritual lightning arrows. And it's explicitly stated that the Reishi arrow, encoded in lightning, to her lightning arrow, even though some people will quibble about, oh, it was actually a Reishi or whatever, but it's explicitly stated that her arrow was not moving at actual lightning speed, even though it is quote unquote technically lightning. So again, and even without all of that, like at a fundamental level, like fire, if you go into the forest, right, and you see something shining at you, that could be fire. Just because the fire produces light, or just because it shines like light, that doesn't mean it's automatically light speed. People know this. People are just being difficult. That's all this is.
And it also feels like if you go in like a Japanese like translations of it, a lot of the time that they use like a specific kanji like gotoku or gotoki, excuse me, it's literally being used as a simile, right?
Yeah.
So it's like exactly. lightning fast, lightning like etc. Yeah. It just does not. It just means that like, okay, you could interpret it as like it being literal, but if there are people out there that just focus so much on like the translation being as like legit as possible, which I understand why, right? You want to get like the closest thing to a statement, but then I've also had people, for example, with like the Luffy times 10 second gear statement saying, well, that's not what it says in the Japanese translation. Yeah, but it says it in the French translation. But the Japanese translation is supposed to take precedent over that. Why does the Japanese translation need to be taking precedent over that? Like, I get that the series is originally Japanese, but it's like saying, well, this translation, because it's not English, because it's not Japanese, because it's not XYZ, like, it has less... There's less validity to it, which I could understand if it maybe contradicted it, but in this case, it's not being contradicted at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and of course I completely agree there. And like, I'm not even hardballed, and because like, if someone wants to say to me, Stein, you know, I don't think we should use this database statement for One Piece because of XYZ reason. I'll be like whatever. I don't really care too much, right? Even though I think like all the context supported without a doubt, I'd be like, okay, sure, whatever. But like when people are going out of their way to twist and turn to make a lightning statement mean that this character is literal lightning, or this has the power to turn the world to ash statement mean that they can literally like make the heavens shake, and like we're just being stupid. We're just being stupid here. That's all that is, right? Like power scalers, and I call this the upscaling problem. Like people are just trying to get their favorite verse to as high as possible, right? And you had said something in the start of this video where you're just like, you know, the scales that you do are just genuine. You genuinely believe the things you're doing. It's not that you're trying to push One Piece. And again, I agree with you. It's the same. But what I want you to really understand, and what I want you to start also pointing out, is that let's say that it wasn't genuine, right? Let's say that you are actually just a paid actor for One Piece, just pushing One Piece propaganda. Right?
I'm out here being paid by Bandai.
That doesn't matter, right? If you're biased, someone can be biased and be right. Just like how someone can be unbiased and still be wrong. So just calling you biased it's not an actual argument. You have like, you actually, okay, even if you're biased, you have to look at the biased thing that you're saying, and is it wrong, right? Is it actually, like, I could be biased to the sun. I could be like, the sun is the Lord and Savior, and say the sun, you know, rises every morning. Like, am I wrong that the sun rises every morning? No, the sun rises every morning. Like, just being biased, just someone calling you biased is not an argument. You can be biased and right. right? So
100%.
irrespective, so I completely agree that you're genuine, but don't like it. All of this is just stupid to a core level. That's what I really want you to get. All of this is just stupid to a core level. Don't just let someone say, "Oh, you're just biased," and act like they've said something profound. No, look at what I've said and tell me what's wrong with what I said. That is it.
It's what you said was biased, bro.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think like one thing that I've especially tried to push within my Discord is just the idea that, like, you know, it's disagreements are completely fine, right? Ultimately speaking, like, you know, we're just two different people. We're just two people. We're a group of people that are just like, you know, we're just on different sides of like the spectrum of whether or not like, we believe X or Y, right? Whether or not we believe that Naruto is universal, or whether or not we believe that he's only planetary or even continental, whatever the fuck you want to, what kind of gauge you want to throw in there, right? That's all well and fine, but it also feels like it gets to a point where it's like, I wish it wouldn't have to get to this extent, because I'd love it if, like, and I guess it's like a very idealized way of me thinking about it, but it's like I wish that like we could at least like get to an agreement, but a lot of the times it just feels like it's just not possible, right?
It's not.
So then I'm like, okay, well, you know, with power scaling, it feels like a very silly thing to like be upset about, but like people genuinely do take this stuff to the point where, like, and I said this before in my other streams, where like I don't like the idea of like people insulting one another, or people going out of their way to like be like, oh, I'm going to shame, not shame you. I'm going to like school you in front of like an entire group or whatever. I've been in. Sometimes I like to like lurk inside these power scaling groups and like across social media, just to see what like people say and stuff, what they think. And a lot of the times, like, you know, it really just is that. It's just really just as people trying to like flex their quote unquote anime logic, or or whatever, just to like try to prove you wrong on whatever. I remember I was having this discussion before about One Piece speed, right? And somebody was like, how fast are One Piece characters? And I'm like, I could unironically, canonically, or at least as canonically as possible, I can quantify Luffy on a massive low ball to 270,000 times the speed of light. And they were like, how the fuck did you get that? This is just glaze, XYZ. And I'm like, okay. So I go down the line of scaling, I explain everything as thoroughly as I can, as concisely as possible. And you know, at some point one of them is like, how the fuck did you get the number for Advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? And I'm like, well, the value for Advanced Conqueror's Haki has to be at the very least on a low ball as strong as possible to fourth gear, since Luffy performs better against Kaido using Advanced Conqueror's Haki than with fourth gear, right? I think that's a pretty fair induction on my end, right? But you know, they're like, well, that number's not canon. I'm like, well, we know for a fact it's a multiplier, since it powers up Luffy to the same extent as fourth gear, and we know that, again, his performance against an opponent that he needed fourth gear prior to this is about the same. But no, so then another guy says, well, no, the whole Gazelle Man thing, they bring that up, and some other guy's like, oh, wow, that's a much better argument for whatever. Mind you, the person that I was talking to was already skeptical about everything that I was saying, and all they needed was somebody else to say, well, how could they not, then why didn't they catch a guy that was going 200 kilometers per hour? And, you know,
you just shouldn't be talking to that person.
At that point, I got to the point where I was like, yeah.
The difference between travel speed and attack speed, and you can't
say. And it wasn't even just like, that. No, I got to the point where I was like, you know what? No, it's fine. Like, I just stopped commenting. I'm like, okay, you know what? I feel like I already understand like where this is going. I understand that like if you are so easily willing to be convinced by some guy bringing up something that I've also mentioned lacks story narrative, completely lacks narrative context, then yeah, there's no point to continue it. It's funny because like I think it was a couple of days later I noticed that I wasn't that I was like I was not banned, but I was like muted from the chat, so I couldn't reply to anything anymore for like at least a week and a half. I was like, damn, that shit is crazy.
No, yeah, and the thing is that sometimes it might sound mean when I'm just like, you know, I'm grouping people into these kind of buckets, and then there are these people who are worth talking to, and then they're the ones that I just call stupid. But it's just like, I'm interested. There's a couple of things. So one, I'm a pretty good debater. I used to like the debates, like in school and whatnot. I understand fundamentals of logic and all of that, but like I don't actually debate anyone anymore at all outside of formal stuff, because like I don't like debating in the sense of trying to win. Because like I'm not sure if you've ever done like formal debates, and you could get a prompt that you don't actually believe in, right? But like you can still win the debate. You could debate something that is completely false, but you are just a better debater, and you win the debate,
Yeah.
right? So I don't like just winning a debate isn't interesting at all to me. Like I want to have conversations with people, right? I want to like, oh, is there something I don't understand? Let me try and understand this. Is there something you don't understand? Let me try and explain this to you. I want to genuinely kind of like connect with people and like get to a better understanding of the things that we love, right? But most people aren't here for that. Most people are here trying to win a debate. That's literally it. And like, there's no point in trying to, especially discuss with someone who isn't good faith, because even if they say it's not a debate, like if like for example the situation that you just described, that person clearly isn't good faith.
Yeah.
They clearly came in with like a preconceived notion, and they're just looking for things to kind of reaffirm what they already believe, and like disregard anything that goes against that. So like what's the point? Like initially it might feel like, oh, if I try hard enough I can get through to this person, but it's just like, not really, because like, so I'm very selective about like, who I want to talk to, if it's really worth it. I'm not going to like a lot of times that people would come to me and be like, Stein, this XYZ YouTuber did this response to your video, what do you think about it? I'm like, bro, I don't care. Like, I'm not out here like, chances are, like, if I put out a video,
Yeah.
then I know exactly what is wrong with all of my video most of the times, right?
Yeah.
There are times where someone points something out to me, but I know exactly like where the kind of chinks in the armor are.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I'm not going to look at random YouTuber XYZ and go, like, most of the times it's just people who aren't even listening to what I'm saying in the first place,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like it's apps. So yeah,
it feels
really think,
it feels bad at times. No, it does feel bad at times. There's whenever I like write up a script, whenever I actually have this issue myself where like whenever I'm writing up a script, I think that like I've developed a pretty good argument as a whole, but then when I go back into like the voice recording and everything, I record all of it, and then I'm like finally editing the video, like there's I guess it's you might call it like laziness on mine, but sometimes I look at it and I'm like, wait, I might have messed up like at this point. I don't know if I'm like, because I'm constantly like re-listening to all my arguments and stuff like that while I'm editing, right? So I'm like, maybe I'm not as convinced by like this point right here, etc. But I still like send the video at the end of the day. There are some points. There are also some like certain points where I'm just like, especially looking back at my older videos, where I'm like, I could have been. I may not have explained this point as well as I should have, or I may not be, but not even so much like not explaining the point, or where like I may not exactly believe this point anymore. I guess it just comes out with like the idea that like as you do the whole YouTube thing, you get better and better at it.
Yeah.
But like
I always try to update, like whenever like I've had videos where if I think that I was like completely wrong about something and I feel like I'm spreading misinformation, I take that video down and redo it. But like most of the times, like again, it's gonna sound like I'm just self-glazing, but like most of the times, like for most of the video I put out, I'm just like, is this going to sound very self-glazed? Like, but I'm just right. It just is what it is, right? You cannot be a reasonable person and disagree with me about certain things, right? There are certain things at the edge, certain peripheries, where like we could have like a really thorough discussion about, and I would be like, I agree with you here. But for certain fundamental things, like, and I usually make a very good distinction about like when something is just something that I personally don't do. So for example, pixel scaling. I don't say that anyone is wrong for pixel scaling.
Yeah,
100%. I just say that I don't necessarily do it as much. Like, but then there are certain things where I think that like but there are other things where I'm just like, you're probably wrong if you're doing this, right? Without a doubt.
Yeah. You know what it is? It's funny because it's like it's inherent part of like human nature to like be like almost constantly exist within like this gray area where it's like almost like contradictory, right? Where it's like I don't do pixel scaling, but if you were to ask me, for example, like is there any line of pixel scaling that you do agree with? And I've said this before, the Alabasta size. The size of Alabaster, right? Where it's like people have gotten it to be like around the size of Australia and stuff like that. But it's mostly because like you do have like a scale for it in terms of like, you do have like this scale for it in terms of like the size of the river, it's and the width of the river that like exists right down the middle, right? Where like people would then, you know, from there on out try to get an idea of how big it is. And you know, an island in One Piece, especially an island that was taking these characters as while traveling with like the quote unquote supersonic duck squadron, where they could like cross the entire cross like a good portion of the desert, a larger portion of the desert relatively quickly within like a couple of minutes to like an hour or so. Like, okay, you know, it kind of makes sense at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, am I saying, like, if I had to, like, have a debate where, like, okay, if I had to, like, let's say, like, bring up, like, a debate or whatever where, like, you know, for example, like, this would have to be a point, I probably wouldn't use it because it's contradictory to, like, my own personal lines of scaling. But it is something where I'm, like, I am more convinced by this, for example, than, like, let's say, the size of the Shinrai Tensei. Yeah, or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
And in another example, and in another case, right, where it comes to like debates, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I don't think I've ever really like done formal debates, but I'm not really a fan of them. I remember a while back, actually it was last year? I think it was last year, where I was on vacation and I was listening to like I was having I didn't have a conversation, but it was like the whole like thing with like Noodles at the time, where he wanted to have like a discussion with me about like our stuff, and I think I did leave him my well, this is not important, but the point is that like I ended up like throughout days afterwards I was like, okay, well let me look at more of this guy's content, for example, or at least more of his debates, just to see like what kind of like a debater he is, right? Because I have seen like
good.
No, and you know what, I could say this, like I was just feeling frustrated, not even because like I was more on like Suikage's side or whatever, at least because I was watching one of his debates with like Suikage and stuff, and I'm like, it's not even because like I'm on like Suikage's side, but like, it feels frustrating, right? I feel like if ever I'm ever getting to the point, and I mentioned this before, where like if I'm feeling frustrated talking to you, or I feel like we're not gonna reach a point just because like your interpretation of things, while I do not agree with it, I'm not gonna like outright say it's wrong, unless like, you know, I'm just like, oh wait, no, this is just this is just something I just cannot agree with under any circumstance. It's like I just feel like, man, this is like, fuck. Do I really would I really debate with someone like that, or would I even not debate with like, or would I really even want to get into debate in general, right? Because when it comes to debates, again, it's all about interpretation, man. It's like you trying to convince me of your interpretation versus me trying to convince you of mine, right? It's like, and I had this discussion before with one of my in one of my prior streams, where I was like I feel like there is a difference between evidence and proof, right? I like to like separate these two concepts of evidence and proof. You can have evidence for something, for any piece of like claim or information that you're trying to go for. For example, right? Like Naruto is planetary. Here's the evidence for it: the God Tree, the attack potency, blah 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 blah. And you have like all of this evidence, right? Evidence can be used to support something, but proof, in this case, proof is like irrefutable. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is objective, right? There's no room for interpretation, and I feel like there's a smaller quantity of things that are just straight up proof. Right, for example, like proof of like Luffy being FTL is he dodged a beam of fucking light after it was shot. It was already traveling through the air. That for me is proof. I don't care how you look at it. If I look at this without any context, if I were to show this to someone without any context, this is proof, right? And it feels frustrating to me at times, because like I tell people, like, whenever we're having a discussion, I even had this discussion with one of my mods, right, where we were talking about Madara slicing two fucking mountains, right? And I'm like, if the entire basis of an argument that you are trying to convince me of, right, and this goes to like anyone that ever tries to like try to convince me of anything, whether it's like power scaling or whatever, it's like I can entirely understand what a person's perspective is going to be on, based on, because if I can understand their interpretation, if I can understand the base of their interpretation. But at the end of the day, this is just their interpretation. So a lot of the times people try, and especially when it comes to power scaling or debates, people are trying to convince you of their interpretation. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you have an interpretation of something and you think like it's completely fair, like this is like a very I don't want to use fair again, but that, like, let's say again, it's just like a very fair interpretation of whatever it is that we're talking about, like, sure, whatever. But it's like, if you're trying to basically change my interpretation for yours, I'm going to need a little more than something than just evidence. I'm going to need proof, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like I have a very logical mind. I feel like I usually try to like see things from as many perspectives as possible, but like the perspective that makes more sense to me at least is usually the perspective that I'll go by, which is why I feel like I'm sometimes very hard to convince. I feel like I'm very stubborn at times because it's like, if the basis of your argument is just to like tell me that I should see it from your interpretation versus like this entire slew of evidence, I'm just not going to be convinced. I'll give you an example, right? Like, the conversation was like, okay, the conversation was about like Madara's, like, you know how, okay, I'm sure that you're aware of like where the discussion of like Madara cutting 2 mountaintops with the release of his fucking Susanoo blade, and how a lot of people say it is a casual feat. I would believe this this idea originally, I feel like it at least stemmed from or was reinforced by Swag Kage and Seth from like years and years ago when they did
damage.
Yeah, when they did
these guys did.
I don't even want to say like it's damaged, but like it like, you know, they were like the biggest powers. I feel like they were like the biggest Naruto power scalers at the time. So obviously the things that they said had a very big impact on the discussion, right? And you know, their interpretation of it was that like, you know, when Madara, you know, he just released his blade from the scabbards, so I mean, it's just releasing the blade, it has to be casual, right? But then my question is, what about any of this is even remotely casual? Because when I started doing like the scaling for myself, and I've told people this, you can look at my scaling and agree with it, that's completely fine, but I'm also fine with people disagreeing with me if you are basing this entirely off of if you like have looked at it, you have read it constantly, and like this is if this is like legitimately the conclusion that you came to from reading the pages, looking at the fights, whether it's the anime or the manga, and this is the conclusion that you came to, completely fine. But I'm like, what about any of this is casual, right? My point was, the only other time Madara ever made this fucking feat, he was in a life or death battle, and it was against an opponent that he went all out against, right? He also mentions, this is my true power. This is the 5. Thus, Uchiha Madara shall also respond with full power. The Gokage are nothing to me. This is the perfect Susanoo. What does he do after saying this is his full power? He releases the blades. My mod was trying to say that like, well, you're saying that like the feat was even difficult for him. I said, it's not about it being difficult. I don't care if the feat took mid-diff, high-diff. I don't care about any of that. It is not a casual feat. Because for it to be casual, you would have to do it with like a flick of the wrist. It would have to be something that you can just replicate whenever the fuck. But no, this feat is only ever replicated in a moment when he says he's using his full power, and a moment where it was a life or death battle. And even when he refights Hashirama, this feat in the 4th Great Ninja War, he doesn't replicate this feat, right? Like, if it were a casual feat to me, at least in my mind, it would mean that anytime he swings this sword, this massive level of destruction is happening. But no, every time he swings the sword, this level of destruction isn't happening. So, is it really like, you know, casual? Also, is releasing a blade is an EI, it's basically an EI technique, right? So is releasing a blade really always a casual fucking feat? Because in almost every other piece of fiction that I see, whenever a character or whatever like has like the sword inside their fucking sheath and they're about to release it, it's almost never something casual. I'm not saying it to say that, like, you know, this feat in particular can't be casual because of that, but what reasoning has to be the case, right? And, you know, we went on a back and forth for a while, but my last comment on the topic was mostly just this. My point was really just this. If the entire basis for your reasoning is because I've interpreted it this way, or at least if I'm supposed to believe it because you've interpreted it this way, that's completely fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but it's not enough to convince me. I need something that at least provides more evidence for it being casual than it not being casual. And if interpretation is the basis by which your entire claim is coming from, then I just cannot agree to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and where I probably would start with that is, like, what is the trying to be like conveyed by the word casual here? Like, if we mean casual in terms of, you know, this is something that any version of Madara can easily do. That's clearly not the case, right? He's doing it in perfect Susanoo. There's no reason to assume that any version of Madara could easily do it.
Yeah.
And as you said, like, perfect Susano is one of his strongest. It's one of
Yeah,
his strongest.
it's his strongest
Like,
state. No, it is quite literally
right.
his peak, right? Like, there's nothing about
So,
any version of Madara, well, prior to like Ten
yeah.
Tails, that like where they do anything that just overpowers what the perfect Susanoo is capable of, right?
But then if you're saying that casual for perfect Susano, in that like this is something that a perfect Susano can easily do, and then there are tiers above it, then I might grant that. But then I'd be like, even if that were the case, that doesn't tell you anything about how high the level that
Right.
perfect Susano goes.
Exactly, right? Like, if because
So,
for me to hear that it's casual, it essentially has to mean that, like, okay, well, the perfect Susanoo, like, it just swinging around its blade, it's able to do something like this, right? Like, it not just like unsheathing it once just to try to demonstrate its power. I mean, if it's just swinging its sword in any way, shape, and form, this is like a bare minimum output, right? For it to be casual to me, it has to be a bare minimum output, but it never replicates this, even when it's
but even if because I would grant, like, because for most debates I don't quibble about things. I would
Yeah.
grant it. Sure, let's say that every swing of the blade could cut mountains in half. Let's
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
That still does not tell you how high the ceiling is, right?
Correct.
So that would be what's important to me, because the reason why someone usually invokes the word casual is to say, if I could do this easily, then imagine what I could do at my highest.
Yeah.
But like, okay, what can you do at your highest? If this being a casual feat, that doesn't, because obviously, like, cutting these mountains is not like is not even more than like mountain level, high mountain level.
I've been
type
saying
shit,
this for a minute,
right?
man.
So it's like, okay, yes, Madara can do a high mountain level feat casually. Okay, does that doesn't suddenly mean that just because you can do a high mountain level feat casually, that you can that suddenly means that you can do an island level feat easily, or that you can do a country level feat easily. So again, like, I would grant like a lot of things, just because, like, I don't like quibble at the low levels. I'm just like, sure, whatever. I don't give a damn. But I would cut into the core of it and say, okay, sure, but this doesn't tell you how high Madara's ceiling is.
Yeah.
And then I think I forgot something. No, yeah, I completely forgot what else. But yeah, that.
Yeah, no, it's mostly just like the idea that, like, okay, it's mostly just, or less, at least to me, like, just the idea that, like, the idea that,
sorry to cut you. Before I forget, the one thing I would say, just because, like, with every swing, Madara isn't replicating this feat, I wouldn't necessarily use that as evidence against it.
It's not so much that it's evidence. It's not so much that it's evidence against it. More so that, like, the only other time that this feat, I talk about it in terms of, like, how reproducible. Yeah, proof of reproducibility, right? Where it's like, how, for me to believe that this feat is casual, right? I want to look at the other instances where a character's been able to do it, right? For example, can Naruto perform a Rasengan casually, right? I would say yes, but what is the reason? The reason is that he can do it in his fucking sleep, right? That to me is a casual feat, right? If I can do something in my sleep, it must be casual, right? I don't think there's anything more casual than that. But with Madara, the state, this case is that, like, what's the only other time that he's replicated this feat? He was using a majestic attire Susanoo, which performed a very similar feat, again, slashing 6 mountains instead of 2, and in this case, it's in a life or death battle, right? So when I take the prior statement of him revealing his true power, when I take the later feats of him, or I guess past feats in this case, of him only performing such a similar feat in a life or death battle, when I take the idea that he has been, when I take the narrative context that he has been trying to crush the Kage spirit this entire time, and the only time that he was fully capable of crushing their spirits was when he was revealing his true power, can I really call this feat casual, right? Like, I look at it more so in less of, like, how much evidence can I get stack up for one side than the other, right?
No, but sure. I mean, casual. I mean, when we say casual, at least in this conversation, it'll be casual for a perfect Susanoo Madara,
of course,
not for. Yeah. Okay.
No, of course.
No, but I mean, like, there a lot of the times, like, the author will allow an initial showing of a thing and don't really show it again.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, the situation here where Madara is just like, all right, let me just show you what this shit can do, and just like as the mountain. I'd be like, sure, you could say it's casual for the perfect Susanoo Madara. I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, just because it hasn't. I get what you're saying. Like, all all the other things, but just because it hasn't been shown again, I would like the situation in which it is shown. I'd probably say sure. You could say that it's casual.
But that's
mean
the
that
thing. That's my
mean that
issue.
it's a showing.
Right, but that's
Like
my
usually,
issue. But that's my issue though, right? Like
yeah,
the term casual, no matter how you look at it, the term casual just means that like it is
yeah,
using as minimum amount of force as possible, right? It is something that you can do regardless of your state of strength, right? Even if we were to argue
okay.
that this is the case for like the perfect Susanoo, it's like what about this is supposed to make me believe that it's casual, right? And this is why it's a point that
Okay,
like
wait. All right, let me ask you a question because you might just not like the word. Like,
yeah.
do you agree that this is something that Madara, Perfect Susanoo, could easily do? Like, you give him 100 mountains, he could easily chop all of those mountains individually.
I
Do
do
you agree
think
that?
do I believe that he can do it? I think that he can do it. I don't think that he can just
Yeah,
do it by I don't think that it's just something that he can do on a whim though, right? I feel like it's something that he has to put a certain amount of effort. I'm not saying that it is a high amount of
yeah.
effort. I'm not saying that it's a low amount. I don't care what the amount is. I'm
Okay.
just saying it's not a low amount of effort. That's the only thing
I
I'm basing it
mean,
off of.
you wouldn't say it's a high amount of effort though.
I would again, that's what I mean. I'm saying
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
care
no,
if it's a high
no,
amount or a mid amount.
no,
I
no,
just don't think it's a low amount.
yeah, yeah, no, but I mean that it's kind of important because if you think it's a high amount of effort, then that would be a fundamental discussion that I think most people disagree
Yeah.
with you. But like even if it's a mid amount, like a low mid amount or a mid amount or
Let's just
whatever,
say okay.
like
Let's just use the nine tails. Let's just use the nine tails. Majestic Guitar Susanoo as an example, right?
yeah,
Would you agree that like the nine tails as an example? Would you agree that like the nine tails offers its own level of power within like this feat? Let me just put it up on screen. Would you say that like this feat is also partially part of the nine tails, right? As an example.
wait, hold on, let
So
me
there's
open back your
yeah.
stream.
So there's
Okay, this.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4, 5, 6.
of
Okay, okay,
course,
okay. So
of course.
there's multiple different ways of looking at this, right? There are multiple different ways of looking at this. But for example, right, if you wanted to say that, like for example, the added force that Kurama added would have added like let's say 4 extra mountains, right? But no, let's just say that half of the force is coming from Kurama, half of the force is coming from the Susanoo, right?
Yeah,
That would mean
yeah.
that this serious feat from Madara, because again, Madara is being attacked by Hashirama, he's trying to get all of this away. I don't think this is a casual feat for him. I think that he's, again, in a life or death battle, he's definitely trying. I would say that even if
Yeah,
you were to
we're
give
not
half
alone.
of the feat to the Susanoo alone, then you would say it's 3 mountains, right? So going back to the
Mhm.
previous feat, then you could say that I can definitely just make the argument off of that Madara is at least exerting 2/3 of his power in this feat alone, since he's slashing up 2 mountains, right?
I wouldn't say
2/3,
I'm
whether
not
or not you
sure.
want to say it's 2/3, whether or not want to say it's 1/3, the fact is, even me exerting 1/3 of my power is not, at least in my opinion, at least the way I like to like
Yeah,
think about things, I would not say it's casual for me, right? The fact that I'm exerting
yeah.
33% of my power, I would not say it's that. We can talk about like the semantics, because it also
Oh
ultimately
yeah.
does fall down into
But
semantics, right?
because I think I think that's the main kind of contention
Yeah.
here. I feel like you really just don't like the word casual and
I
like
just do not
appropriately.
like I just do
Yeah,
not like the word
like
casual. I don't like the semantics of it because when you say that it's
yeah,
casual, in my
yeah,
mind you're saying that you're using up like again, just to throw in a semantics arbitrary value for it, let's just say 10%, right? Do I
yeah,
believe this is a
yeah.
tenth the power of Ususano? No, I have no reason to believe that. If I wanted to give it a third, 33% of a Susano, sure, I can give you that. I don't
Yeah.
care. That's all fine by
So
me.
yes, yeah. So that's where I would let. So in a situation like that, I probably would like just discard the word because the word
Yeah,
clearly just
yeah, the
okay.
word is clearly
I,
just the issue.
Yeah. So and then I would literally just do what you just did and just be like, okay, let's actually put numbers onto these. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then you guys would quibble about the numbers because
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
they're just
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's more 15, and then you're just like, no, I definitely think it's
Yeah,
at least 20.
I don't even like getting into like the argument of numbers, right? Like, cause it's just like, for example, I did it right now, sure, but it's like it's just a way for me to like say like, okay, well, this is like,
Yeah.
this is just to like try to like get a scale like where we can at least agree, okay,
Exactly.
well, yeah, the XYZ is this amount, right?
Look,
And it's actually one of the reasons I don't even
the
like debates, man.
the numbers aren't meant to serve as like some definite
Definitive, yeah,
this is definitely
definitive like
it's
quantifiable
more
scale.
yeah, it's more meant to serve as a way to make the discussion more clear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for both
Because like
parties.
exactly, because casual that could mean a lot of things for different
Mm.
people, but like numbers themselves, that's more tangible and you can play around with it more. It's
For
not
sure.
yes, it's just to
For
make the
sure.
discussion easier. Yep.
Um But this point aside, there was there was actually a conversation that I want to bring up to you. Also, just to bring it up, one of the other things was that like, what do you feel about like the misinformation of scaling from like data books compared to like the prime source, right? So like the source material, right? Like things that like directly contradict like the source material.
So, I mean, unsurprisingly, I'm gonna tell you the thing that's right.
Yeah.
Self-glazing. But like, and again, this is clear to everybody if
Yeah.
they're not just trying to upscale their favorite verse, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Obviously, if the source material directly contradicts something in a data book,
Mm-hmm.
you obviously choose the source material over. It's obvious,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, obviously, when you're reading a data book, you need to apply like basic language literacy. Obviously, everything isn't meant to be taken literally word for word.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, similes exist. Obviously, metaphors exist. Like obviously, and there are obviously other things that like you can trust from
Even
that.
like
Like
the
the
language
reason,
too. Even like the language in
yeah,
like the data books is
exactly.
obviously completely different from like the language used in a in the
Yeah.
canon source
So
material.
so it's like it's like I look at like I you look at something like someone literally saying to you that okay, the source material tells me that Kirin is lightning speed. I know that Kirin is natural lightning.
Yeah.
Sasuke tells me he's only pulling down Kirin. Zetsu says that it's the actual lightning speed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go find this random data book and play around with translations for this to be actual light speed. You know that is silly. Any person knows that is silly.
And
It is these are not hard discussions. You only have people who are just trying to upscale their favorite characters. That is all this is.
and it brings
That
up
is all this is.
and it brings up like just like this other like separate discussion, and it actually goes into like the speed discussion itself, where it's like, let's talk about like speeds again, right? For example, like just as a small tangent, right? Where it's like reaction speed, right? I'm a firm believer, especially after reading through a good portion of Naruto, that like reaction speed in Naruto is honestly much higher than like movement or combat speed, right?
Mhm.
Where characters, for example, when I'm supposed to talk about like as a misnomer, and I really hate the anime for this because they had such an opportunity for it, but like, I don't know what the reason was, but for example, Kakashi cutting a lightning bolt, right? I feel like for a lot of people the idea is that like, for example, Kakashi cut a lightning bolt when he was 14, so they're willing to say that like, well, he should be because of like the early light speed Naruto stuff, Kakashi should be light speed, and it's like, well, let's talk about this. Let's let's look at it a bit more in depth, right? Kakashi was
Early
stated to
Kakashi
cut.
is faster than the fastest ninja alive.
Yeah, but not even just
Really?
that, right? It's like, okay, Kakashi tagged a lightning bolt, right? Well, let's look at the anime, for example, because the manga never shows it. The anime shows him running up a tree, the lightning bolt's starting to form, he's running up a tree, the lightning bolt's starting to form, he's running up a tree, and then it fades out to white, and then the lightning bolt comes down, and it also comes down to what fades out to white, right? It's like there's nothing to base this off of. We know for a fact that he did tag the lightning bolt, but did he tag the lightning bolt as it was about to reach down? Was he already up the tree and running towards it when it came down? You know what I mean? There's so much of a big room for interpretation, and a lot of the times people just say, well, no, he's clearly lightning speed because of this, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, he could have been close to where he could have already been close to where the lightning bolt is coming and simply just thrusted his hand up in the sky, right? You know what I mean? It's like, does that verbatim mean that he's massively hypersonic?
Yeah. Listen, it like people goad you into this thing where like you feel like you need to you feel like you need to like defend something where
Yeah.
or connect you feel like to prove something you need to attack this other thing, but no, if you just step a second back here, even if Kakashi did cut a lightning bolt and that made him a certain speed, that does not change the speed of Kirin, right?
Mm-hmm.
That does not actually change the speed of Kirin.
Yeah.
Like people think that, oh, Kid Kakashi did this, therefore Kirin. No, that's not actually the case. Kirin can still be a certain speed,
Yeah.
right? It's silly. So I want people to understand. No, just we don't have to get baited along certain lines.
And even
But
then,
again,
and even then, right, with like, let's say like, for example, let's say for a moment that like, okay, sure, the data books, because Zetsu never saw the attack, because like the line of logic that people usually like to go for is like, well, who are you going to believe, the author or the guy that only ever saw it one, right? And it's like, okay, well,
speaks to the character.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, I agree, and this is especially a big case for One Piece, because like a lot of the times, like the world building and a lot of the statements come from the characters themselves, right? They make a statement that is so specific that it's like, well, am I really going to disagree with this? But okay, one of the biggest arguments that I've always heard is that like, well, the data books are meant to like support what the series is doing, but not just support it. It's basically coming from like the author itself, right? Which like, sure, I guess, but even then, like, Kieran being lightspeed, for example, like, let's say it is for a second, right? What does that really mean? Because for example, Itachi, he blocked it with a Susanoo, but we don't know how much of a Susanoo he was able to make, because we know that he still got hit by it to an extent, since he was lying on the floor without a robe, right? He couldn't dodge it, so that means Itachi isn't light speed in any sort of way, and any sort of combat speed, and any sort of movement speed, whether it's long-term or short bursts, he has no kind of light speed movements. It's just, at best you could say it's reaction time, right? For Sasuke, when he activated his Susanoo, right? Oh, well, Darui has the laser circus jutsu, which came at him, and it's like, well, sure, but that doesn't mean Sasuke is light speed. That doesn't mean he has movement speed or anything like Itachi. He just blocked an attack, right? Like, these characters have consistently shown to have higher reactionary speeds for many of the things that they have to deal with, but it never fully translates into their movement speed, right? Like, there's only very few cases with, like, let's say, like, the Raikage, right? Where it's like, when Naruto's running down with Sasuke and KCM, and, like, they're both charging up a black flame Rasen Shuriken, it's like, is Sasuke and Naruto, are they running at the speed of light? Well, no, because whenever Naruto, like, moves at that speed, he usually flickers. Is he flickering? Not really.
I mean, I'd be careful there, because if you grant that these characters reacted at these speeds, like, so let's step back to like Haku versus Naruto. Let's say you grant that in that.
Oh, I would never grant that.
I'm just saying.
For the example,
yeah. If you granted that they actually had that reaction speed, then anytime that Naruto came back on screen and a character was able to tag like that form of Naruto that reacted at light speed or fast and light speed, then the character who tags that Naruto now automatically becomes fast and light, because you're now scaling off of each other. Yeah. So like granting it does actually change things. But again,
it changes a lot of things, and I agree with that. It definitely does change a lot of things, but I feel like there's also a plenty of context that one could use to like say like, okay, for example, right, like I'll give an example, right? Like one of the biggest feats that like people like to use is like when Naruto and Itachi clash, Itachi must be lightspeed because of it, right? Whenever they had like that short exchange midair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'm like looking at the scene, I'm just like, well, Naruto just jumped up at Itachi, right? There, like, one of the things I like to use is precedence, where it's like if there is an example of this being replicated, or like a statement is able to like support a feat, and then like this feat is being replicated another time, then I'm able to like agree with like, let's say, an interpretation, right? But like with that feat, it's like people are saying, well, Itachi has light speed, movement speed, combat speed, everything, because like he's clashing with Naruto in midair, but it's like he's just falling, bro. He's just falling down. Am I supposed to believe Itachi can fall down at the speed of light?
Well, I don't know what gravity's doing there.
I don't know what gravity's doing there. I don't know why Naruto, like, just jumping up at Itachi would be light speed. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a lot of mental gymnastics, I feel like, a lot of the time.
Again, people start at the end point and then kind of like try to go from there.
Or another example would be like how Rock Lee, there was like a feat with like Rock Lee fighting like the sound ninjas, and they were like, yo, Eon, come on for a second, just show us, just show the page where like show the page where like Rock Lee is getting hit by the sound-based attack. Like, he can't see it, man. He can't see the sound-based attack, therefore he got hit by it. And I'm like, I can understand, but let me also show you another example where Rock Lee's using the first gate, where he's moving faster because of the first gate, and where as he's about to pile drive one of these guys into the ground, one of the other guys with, again, sound-based attacks cushions the fall after. He's like doing hand signs and everything as Rock Lee's already spinning out and ready to slam someone into the ground. And I'm supposed to, again, believe that they're light speed when a guy was able to do hand signs and react to the attack, have it travel through the ground to then make the ground all, to essentially make a whole cushion. I'm supposed to believe, like, oh yeah, no, all these guys are light speed because of that. Like, come on, man. You can't just look at one fucking panel and then say, hey, this entire thing, all of this scaling, all of the scaling is light speed. Kakashi dodged his own shadow in a diagram. You see this diagram? You see this diagram right here? Where Kakashi's now in a tree, but he was there, but he was in a tree. Yeah, no, look at there. Kishimoto still drew a little shadow, a little circle of darkness there. That must mean Kakashi. It's like, bro. Okay.
That is the majority of Naruto scaling. And that's why people get so upset. Because, like, they'll hear something, and this is like, people, and it's always so funny when people are just like, oh, you're just biased to One Piece. I grew up on Naruto.
I did too,
Naruto
man.
is what I used to watch on Toonami. When
every single night, man. Every single
when they in the
Toonami.
tuning exam, they were just like, sound is vibration. I went to school the next day, and I was acting like the coolest, kid ever. I'm just like, sound is vibration and that type of shit. So I love Naruto.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, when I actually do the research and I actually see for myself, I see that this is nonsense, and people are just trying to crucify you over that. Like, it just is what it is, right? Like, these characters just aren't as strong as you guys want them to be.
Yeah.
If you're not doing some mental gymnastics.
It's interesting, right? Because it's like, so recently, to give you like an idea, so recently I'm writing up a script for Naruto and Killer Bee, thanks to one of my members for giving me this idea. IMAX, if you're still in here, shout out to you again, my guy. It was an idea where, like, okay, Naruto and Killer Bee and how they would be able to handle a Buster Call, right? Like, because I feel like it's an interesting topic. Mind you, Naruto and Killer Bee prior to KCM 2, right? I wanted to be like within like this weird point in time because I feel like it'd be an interesting topic of conversation to have, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, what conditions can I make for the fight that, like, because it's part of the content too. It's part of like the whole idea of the content where I'm like, okay, I get controversy in and of itself breeds like content, right? Where, like, if I make a crazy video about, like, just, talking about like Naruto power scaling and blah 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 or whatever, and like I could probably downplay it or downplay it even more is how some people would like to say, and it's like, I could do that, but I also feel like making a video where, like, I can give plenty of arguments for both sides. It's like I feel like that's more interesting, right? So for example, with this thing, I'm like, okay, so what could Naruto and Killer Bee do against a Buster Call, right? Like, these giant cannon fire from these ships that are at least what was it, 160 meters tall. They're described to be 160 meters like tall or whatever, or like long. It's like these ships are unironically.
No, they're I think they're 60 meters.
Wasn't it more?
The Navy ship.
Navy warship size.
Yeah, in the recent Egghead chapters.
It's 60. Yeah, 60. My bad. It was like 60. Yeah, it's like these ships are like almost 5 times larger than your average tailed beast, 4 to 5 times larger than your average tailed beast, right?
That's what, like, I want to pause you on there. Like, people don't understand how massive the characters in One Piece are. I was watching which one of your videos today, but it was the one where you were talking about Alabasta and its size, and you're just like, based on some calculations, they're over. Like, if there's 0.01% of the 10 million islands is Alabasta size, it'd be at what 1,000, and that would be like 1,000 times 300 something thousand square. And it would be like 16 or some great number.
It was 100. It was like 156 without including the water. It's like 156 times the planet size of the planet Earth. Yeah, no, it's fucking stupid. I'm
just like, people don't understand how big these characters are. Like, again, you have a Big Mom who's like 8 point something meters, is half the size of a Bijou. Right? The average giant, Bragi, Dory, like, all these niggas are half the size, are taller than the average Bijou. Because remember, Gamabunta and Shikaku are about the same size.
Yeah, give Shikaku a little bit more, but all the tailed beasts are about the same size.
Same size, right? And even if you were to argue that Kuruma is a little bigger than all the others, and you were to argue that when he fuses with his second half he gets bigger, he's not 2 times bigger than Kuruma, right? No, sorry, he's not 2 times bigger than Gamabunta. And
Yeah.
again, even if he was 2 times or 3 times
That would
big,
still
if even
make him smaller than a
that,
warship.
yeah, exactly 3 times. Not again, Eon. Not even just a warship, but 3 times 17 is what?
3 times 17 is 51.
54. 51.
Yeah.
Like that would make him smaller than Ors. That would make him smaller than all the numbers. That would
Yeah, that would
make
make
him
him smaller
than
than Loki.
Loki. That would make him smaller. Even I did a calculation the other day because I always flirt with making a size video. You remember that scene of when Harold was clashing with
Oh, when Harold's clashing, I talked about that. Yeah, when he clashes with rocks and they push away everything within 5 kilometers.
If you and you should do this calc yourself, but like Harold's size is that of an ancient giant, so somewhere near Ors' size. So
60 meters. It's just 60 meters flat, let's just say.
Yeah, if you were to calculate the average size, because remember his sword is proportional to his body as well. So his sword, like if you were to scale it up from the average size of the proportion of a normal sword, his sword is somewhat around like 20 meters.
Yeah.
Like Harold's sword is bigger than a bijou. Like people don't understand this, right? And again, like don't even stop there. On Skypiea, that snake is over 200 meters. Nora, that snake is over 200 meters. The island killer goldfish that Dorian Boggy blew a giant hole in, that shit was over 700 meters. Like people
Surume is canonically like 300 meters tall. And like Luffy one-shot this thing underwater. Like a quarter of his strength.
People do not get it. The bijou that are some of the big. I remember watching Naruto when I was young and shit, and I remember when Gamabunta was first summoned, and he was just towering over the trees. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is so amazing. But these things are ants in the One Piece world. They're not comparable.
Yeah, and ironically, the giant beasts that Luffy was fighting on that island are probably bigger than them. The giant like gorilla and shit. Yeah.
And like. A lot of people like anyway, let me stop there, but like I know I probably cut your train of thought, but it's fine. Just like people need to people don't, and this is why it just sucks for a lot of people realizing this shit, but like Naruto, the nostalgia is there and shit, but like compared to One Piece, like no.
I look at it. I also look at it from a perspective of like, well, let's talk about like liberty for a second. Liberty in the sense of like how free a character's abilities are, right? How like all the liberties that a character might have due to their abilities, right? As an example, a lot of shit in Naruto is crazy because of its hacks, right? I think you and I can agree on that. But can we talk about how insane some of the hacks in One Piece are? For example, Bartholomew Kuma's Pawpaw Fruit has the ability to not just deflect, but repel pain and damage and even memories. That's kind of working almost on a conceptual fucking level. You know what I mean?
Not kinda. It is.
And
again,
an issue that I was having today, because I only have like a page written down for the script so far. I kind of procrastinated a lot today, but like I only have like a page for the script so far. But it's like I was looking at it and I'm looking through like the vice admirals, for example, right? So I'm gonna make like a combination of like a buster call, like a pseudo combo buster call, because like I don't want to do the massive fleet that they had in for Egghead, because I don't think like Killer Bee can rapid spam enough tailed beast bombs to blow all those ships up before Turtle Island gets shot down, right? Like I just don't think that's possible. But so I'm like, okay, so 10 ships like they did for Enies Lobby, but then I'm also gonna throw in, since I don't really have much context to go off of, I'm also I have at least better context for like, let's say, the Vice Admirals, and I'm like, the Vice Admirals unironically probably give Naruto and Killer Bee a run for their money, right? Like Bluegrass alone.
You need to tell me, because I haven't scaled the Vice Admirals, so I don't know.
Well, for one, they're blitzing the pacifista who are shooting beams of light. I think it's better shown throughout. I think only 2 of them I can really make an argument for, which are Doll and Bluegrass. But Bluegrass, for example, let's say Killer Bee transforms into his tailed beast state. Bluegrass is faster than light. She's likely faster than Naruto. If she gets on Killer Bee's back, and this isn't a conversation more about like what you think would happen, but like she has the ride fruit, which allows her to take over anything. It's stated to take over anything that she's riding on top of, and she's able to drive it. And I'm just like, if she gets on Killer Bee's back, is it just an instant loss for them? You know what I mean? Where it's
Yeah.
where it's one of those cases where it's like a pacifist is not easy to take down by any fucking means. I hope we can agree on that, right? Especially a Mark III,
100%.
especially a Mark III pacifista that like like Luffy needed his entire crew to fucking take down, and they're able to like destroy, and Luffy's able to essentially bring down a fucking city at this point, considering the shit that he did in Enies Lobby when he was literally just ramming through buildings on his own, right?
Yep.
You throw in a third gear multiplier into that, whatever the fuck you want to say. Even if you want to say it's just as strong as second gear, right? Even if you want to say like the buff, even though it wouldn't be, but even if you want to say like third gear just amplifies Luffy's punch by 3 times, he needed his entire crew, a lightning blast, a pacifista blowing up on its own beam of light, Zoro and Sanji trying to cut and hit it as hard as they fucking could. Just for him to then try to bring it down with a giant rifle, and even then the thing, it didn't even explode. It just ceased to function. And here's Bluegrass and here's like Doll one-shotting one of these things, and the Bluegrass literally just jumping on its back, and just taking control of it, even through its own protocols. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I'm probably like, for the sake of fairness, I'll probably, you know, I don't know. I'm gonna have to like read through I'm gonna have to actually watch Egghead specifically so I can get like a better understanding of how the feats went. I know that some people don't like me using like anime feats, but ultimately, like, if the anime, if it's still part of like a canon arc, I'm probably willing to use it, unless it's like an entirely, like, unless like it entirely contradicts like what happened in the manga.
Exactly. That's what I always say. If the anime is meant to add things, right?
Yeah.
So like, if it's a complete contradiction, then obviously you choose the manga over it. But if it's something that's just adding more context, like just saying, "Oh, it's the anime," therefore I'm like, that's silly to me.
Yeah, because it's like okay, like if I were to take like Kizaru versus Luffy, you kind of want the Kizaru fight from the anime because it at least shows him kind of pushing Luffy a tad bit more, at least in my opinion, right? Like, it looks a lot closer, at least in the anime, than it does in the manga for me.
And people have to understand, like, Oda can't draw every single. That's like, you can't draw every single thing. The manga would never fucking end. That's the point of an anime.
It's supposed to like expand on what the manga's doing.
Exactly. To show, people get mad when like they see an attack added to the anime. Like, do you expect it? Like, it's just silly. Again, if something happens that contradict the source material, always go with the source material. But adding things, like,
that's insane, Dio.
It's silly. Yeah,
it's silly. Yeah, no. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like at this point I'm trying to just make things as fair as possible. As a matter of fact, I was telling my subs for the Luffy versus Naruto video, since I'm so close to finally making it. Once I hit the 10K, I'm like, okay, just as an example, right? I'm like, I've legitimately sat there, like, just throwing in like random calcs into Naruto, numbers that I'm here, and I want to get your idea on this, right? It's like, I want to make it as clear as possible. I wanted to make it as clear as possible that no matter how I try to quantify Naruto, even with Wank, Luffy will always be faster. I got to a point where I'm like, okay, well, fuck One Piece, fuck its fans, this shit's mid. Naruto gets another 10 times amp for no reason. And you know what? Let me just throw in 100 times amp on top of that just for the sake of it. And I got Naruto to like 200,000 times the speed of light. And then I go on like my whole tangent with Luffy, and I'm like, well, so this is like the bare minimum for this. This is like the bare minimum for this. So like, we're gonna use the bare minimum value for this, the lowest value possible. I'm going to make it as clear a day as possible that I'm going to be as biased against One Piece and as biased for Naruto, and I can still get Luffy on a low ball to be like 35% faster than the guy. You know what I mean? And I feel like
no matter what you do.
Oh no, I'm gonna get called a glazer. I'm gonna get called a fucking glazer, man. And it's crazy because it's like, if you just look at the fucking, if you just read the series objectively, I'm talking about, don't throw in any favoritism, don't throw anything. You throw in this feat from Madara Uchiha slashing 2 mountains, and then you take Garp saying, I pulverized 8 fucking mountains with my bare fists. Mind you, he trains without Haki. You can't even argue that he's using Haki to blow them up. No, he's punching down mountains. What the fuck am I supposed to say? Especially on the same chapter where there's a guy that says he split a continent of ice that is so tough Pickaxes and fire cannot scratch it. I'm like, brother, what is a continental feat in Naruto?
And again, like you have law even with the same mountain thing. A casual law is just cutting a mountain. Like that's a like I don't like. It's always fun when people are just like, Stein, you're just so biased against Naruto. People don't understand. There's a bunch of Naruto versus videos that I want to make, like Naruto versus One Piece. But every single time I say that, okay, I want to make this video, I'm just like, this is too unfair against Naruto.
Yeah,
like,
I know it's gotten to that point.
That's always a situation. I'm just like there's just nothing they can do. I've thought about multiple videos. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Have you ever been asked to do Kakashi versus Law?
No one has asked me. But if someone asked me that, like, it's funny that you bring that up because Ian, like, I kid you not, like, and maybe I'm just like super biased or something like. But Law could solo the Naruto verse.
Yeah, no.
I've had to hold myself back from making that video.
Yeah, when you consider that Law has essentially Sasuke's Rinnegan ability shift on Room with a farther range, and he has the ability to also destroy not only your organs but your ability to heal yourself and attack the very soul. What
That's the thing.
The fuck do they do?
What a lot of people don't understand is like series like One Piece and Bleach have a good mechanism to prevent hacks. But Naruto characters aren't great against hacks. Like that's why you'll have much weaker characters. Like even Kakashi, who can do a teleportation Chidori on not Chidori, Lightning Blade on Kaguya, and it actually does damage. Kaguya. I want you to understand, Kaguya, Madara, no matter how strong they are, they couldn't just be like, oh no, Sasuke, you can't teleport me. Kaido is literally saying, bro, no, that shit just won't work. My Haki will stop it. That's what people don't understand, Ian. Like, One Piece is so strong that we take certain things for granted.
Yeah, no, if Haki wasn't a thing, Devil Fruits would absolutely be a fucking problem.
Exactly. Like high level characters like Kaido can be like, yo, no Sugar, you can't turn me into a doll. No Law, you can't teleport me and swap my soul.
They have no way of preventing that in Naruto. Like Doll unironically turns Kaguya into a tiny little doll. Saying.
Like, Law steps into the Naruto verse, like, and literally just be like, okay, time to operate. And Kaguya cannot do anything. That's what, like, I've had to hold myself back.
And it's always a conversation of like, okay, but like, what does Law do about like Kamui Shuriken? One word, shambles. He just sends him to Kakashi. He just teleports. He just swaps himself with. I was really because here's one of those things where I'm thinking to myself like, maybe it's because I have heard all of this Naruto shit for years that like a part of me like wants to not believe it, but it's like I really thought about it for a second. I'm like, I really thought about like DMS Kakashi. I really thought about DMS motherfucking Kakashi against Law, and I'm like, what the fuck does Kakashi? What answers does Kakashi have for Room? Like realistically, what does he have for Room? His perfect Susanoo turns into his versus Susanoo quite literally just gets turned into chopped mutton, and Law shoves his own head up his own ass.
Exactly. Like people don't like.
You have no answers for it.
Every single one of Law's attack, the only like in a verse that doesn't have a counteracting mechanism like Haki, like there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah.
The reason Law isn't like Law, like for example,
the reason Law can't be the strongest character in the verse is because he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki. He doesn't have Haki.
Yeah. like, again, even something like with Law just slicing people.
Yeah.
Like. For you to stop that, it's not just you being strong. You need to have strong Haki.
Yeah.
It is a durability negating technique. It doesn't matter how strong you. That's why Doflamingo said, Law, I know your abilities, but Virgo's Haki can stop your slice.
Yeah.
Again, the Naruto characters, like they'll try to say, oh, but Chakra this. No, it can't do anything. Kaguya, you're a flag bearer. You're Madara, you're a flag bearer. We're casually being
also they're weak to physical attack. Also, they're like still weak. Here's the thing, like also people don't consider that like Sage of Six Paths modes and Six Path Senjutsu is still weak to physical.
In Naruto,
yeah, it's
exactly.
It's powerful because it basically it makes you immune to the damage of ninjutsu. I feel like people never saw this coming when, like, for example, Sasuke. What happened when Sasuke blitzed behind Naruto Naruto and fucking tagged him right in the side of the head with a piercing lightning Chidori, what did he do? It didn't deal damage. He knocked Naruto away. He basically just punched him in the back of the head. He didn't actually hit him. What happened when Naruto got hit by Kirin? It didn't actually... It shot him down, sure, it moved him, but it didn't deal damage. But they're still weak to physical blows.
My guy is people like my guy, like people look at my guy and be like, oh, my guy is so strong. My guy is special in Naruto because everybody else is doing all this ninja shit. Like every other verse.
Yeah, throw
like,
my guy into Naruto, into One
yes.
Piece. He is nothing. Like, he does. I don't think he. I think he at best gets past the grind line. I think he at best just gets past like first half of the grind line. I don't see him getting past the second half.
Yeah, he's nothing special. Like you have like Garp, the Garp. Every single like the what's that special thing called? Not rank you. The thing that the CP9.
Oh, special the 6 powers. Rankyaku.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
do.
Exactly.
Soru. They do Geppo. Yeah.
Every other verse every other verse trains their body. It's just Naruto verse that is weak. People don't understand. That's what I'm saying, bro.
They're literally jumping. As a matter of fact, it's crazy because even Sukuna can jump off. He can actually kick off the air. He's one of the few characters. I think he's like one of like 2 characters that can literally like just fly based on like just kicking off the air. It's crazy.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like I've had to hold myself back. Like I find myself thinking, okay, let me put an admiral versus something. Oh no, but they can't actually touch an admiral. I was watching one of your videos today, and I think you brought up the Perthapat's ability to take souls out of the bottom. Again, it's not just that they're faster. You didn't bring this up, but it's not just that they're faster. Haki stops that. Haki would be like, nope, just like our law can't just switch soul. Haki stops things like that. That's what I'm saying. Like every time I try to put a Naruto character against against a higher tier One Piece character, any Logia, no, it can't work. Any high tier Paramecia, actually, it can't work. Like the One Piece characters can solo. Law can unironically solo the Naruto verse, and like I've had to hold myself back.
Yeah, no, I
like,
get you.
Oh my god.
No, it's interesting too because it's like one of the things that I actually like. One of the things that I actually that I judge Naruto, not Naruto. I like that Naruto doesn't do this, but one of the reasons that I heavily judge the power systems of Dragon Ball and Bleach for is that in their power systems One Piece does this too, but I'll get to One Piece in a second. In their verses, there is this not unwritten rule that the more powerful you are, the less effective your opponent's abilities, their damage, and even their hacks are on you. You can see this all throughout Dragon Ball, where a character, I'm gonna throw like a movie in as an example, but like for example, when Broly literally walks right through Goku's Kamehameha, his strongest attack, no damage, nothing, he just punches Goku in the face. When you have characters like Kenpachi Zaraki ignoring all of this damage from the visionary guy, from the guy that can think of things for this fucking mind. When Ichigo is so strong, he can just catch Aizen's blade. You know what I mean? Where the stronger you are, the less effective your opponent is. And One Piece does this as well, but the thing about One Piece in this case, somebody brought up Boost Candy versus Vegito. By the way, guys, I am reading all your comments. Boost Candy versus Vegito, right? Where it's like, it in my opinion, at least as form was like writing, it causes an issue because like, it makes it so that the only thing that matters is just being strong. It doesn't matter the hacks, the abilities, none of it matters if all you have to do is be stronger. And One Piece does this as well, but the reason why they do it in a better way is not just because you need to have Haki for it. It's not just because you need to have Haki, but because the difference between you and your opponent has to be staggering. It has to be massive. For example, you don't need advanced. One of the things that I've been thinking about myself lately is that, okay, well, advanced Conqueror's Haki actually like lessens the effects of Devil Fruit abilities on you, right? It's just been like a little thing that I've been working with because it makes sense for like Kaido and Big Mom, but it's not just that, because Law was able to negate the effects of the virus fruit from Doc Q. Right? So it is a matter of strength, but also Law as someone who can fight a Yonko like Big Mom, he is massively stronger than someone like Doc Q who would likely get one shot, right? Like the difference still has to be there, but it also has to be massive. and I like that, right? With series like Bleach and stuff like that, or like Dragon Ball, it feels like though the difference has to be great, it doesn't have to be that large either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Relatively
Yeah,
speaking.
I get that. I mean, as you probably get a little deeper into Bleach, sometimes it's very clear that it's massive. Like Aizen
Yeah.
versus Soifang.
Soifon or
There's
Toshiro
yeah,
Hitsugaya, yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes it is
It's
just,
clearly
but
massive.
it's also
Yeah,
the amount of like Reiatsu that they have, right? I've noticed that it's also like the amount of Reishi that they have, which is kind of weird because it's like the thing that doesn't make that makes Aizen so insane isn't just it isn't just like, you know, how strong he is. It's the fact that he just has a fuck ton of Reishi. Like it's constantly brought up even in like the 1,000-Year Blood War, where it's like it's his Reishi amount that allows him to like you know, do all these crazy things.
No, yeah, 100%.
But yeah, honestly, man, this has been a really nice chat. I know we mentioned that like the cutoff point was like 10 p.m., but like, and I honestly like to like collaborate with you more, man. Let me know. We can definitely talk about this stuff more. But are there anything like any like closing thoughts that you like to bring, or like any last convo?
I mean, what I feel like what I really want to push is getting past. Like I know you really want you. I'm not, and I'm not trying to police who you talk to or anything like that. But I really want to start pushing. Like we need to start getting people to operate in the same reality, or just treat them like they're dumb, right? Because it's just like again, you can disagree with the existence of attack potency, for example, if you want, but then you just aren't qualified to have a conversation in like proper power scaling discussion, right?
I hear you.
So I want people to become more, especially like the fans of ours, to become more like knowledgeable in like at least these basic things, right? You know, these dumb speed arguments. Because like, well, the thing that I don't like going over the same things over.
Yes. I hear you.
So I really want like that to be a major kind of push from like most sensible scalers. Like, okay, this is attack potency. Okay, these are different types of speed. Okay, yes, in fiction, these you know, we can have these things, but then it can go above these things. Or you know, durability, this that. I just want to kind of, especially like One Piece. I want to kind of. Because I feel like you're probably one of the better One Piece scalers as well. I really want this concerted push to like get One Piece to really a certain level.
Yeah, get One Piece to at least be considered something. I hear you.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, you didn't like me saying the damage that Seth and crew did, but it's damage. Like, in my opinion, it's damage. Because like all these reverberations of things that I'm having to deal with now and you're having to deal with now, it was set into motion largely by them, and you didn't really have anybody sensible at the time. Okay, not sensible. You didn't have anybody really pushing back. You didn't really have any like big One Piece. But I would argue even right now you don't really have any big One Piece power scaler, at least to the level that like Seth and Clyde and those guys were, right? Yeah. So I really want like the One Piece collective to really just.
I like to just think about it this way, that like maybe it's just because like I viewed it from like just the perspective of anything, that it's like One Piece has such a massive story, and I feel like it having also like the largest fan base, or at least in my mind, I feel like it has the largest fan base considering it's the longest running, has the, you know, is known worldwide enough to the point where like they even have like the Macy's parade and stuff, where it's like most people just don't care about power scaling, and I get it, right? It is a very niche topic. It is a very 100%. Niche topic of discussion to even have, right? It's funny too, because it's like even with like One Piece, even with like people that like read One Piece, they're like, you know, like, I don't know, Luffy being like FTL, even that doesn't sound right to me. And it's like, but we both have seen the same story, man. Like, is it really so crazy? And is it really so crazy? And this is gonna sound weird, but like I've had like not so much like this theory, but like this idea for a while now, that like the more nonsensical, the more fantastical a series is, the more insane its scaling can get, right? Like, out of all three stories, Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, I think at least you and I might be able to agree that like Naruto is almost the most grounded by comparison, right? Like it feels the most grounded from like a whole comparison. I would say that even then Bleach to me almost feels like not so much like the second the second most grounded, but it doesn't feel as fictitious as One Piece is, where you have an island that is literally, where you have not even an island, a country, a giant archipelago of islands that are all just designed and constructed out of foods. You have you have a ship the size of an island, not just an island, a ship the size of an island that is tiny comparison to the size of like something like Hachinosu. I'm talking about Thriller Bark, that takes up like this entire Halloween aspect. You have islands that just shoot down lightning constantly, an island that is basically half fire, half ice, like things that honestly should not make sense in any realm of reality other than the fact that like the author wrote ice because I said so. We know that Oda, you know, he has his reasons for it within the world building, but it's like many of these islands just are almost impossible for them to like actually exist, or at least like within a grounded sense. Animals and creatures, same species of animals that are like 5 to 10 to 100 times the size of other animals. You know what I mean? It's insane, and it's crazy for me to then hear people think like, oh, like none of this scale, like Luffy is continental. By Dressrosa, you're fucking glazing, and I'm like, bro, this is a story about a man made out of rubber who rides on a boat with a talking reindeer, a living skeleton, a cyborg, and a fishman over a fucking rainbow with giants. Are we really gonna, or like, is continental really the part here that doesn't make any fucking sense to anybody?
No, I 100% agree with you. And in one of my most recent videos, I put the panel where this One Piece physicist, it was when that galleon was falling from the sky, and this One Piece physicist, in world One Piece physicist says that, you know, if anything that you can imagine in this world is probably possible. And I feel like that was one of the best encapsulation of One Piece ever. Like it's just, as you said, it's just completely silly to me that where people decide that they want to draw the line. Come on.
Yeah. It's like, and it's like even when you just look at like early One Piece scaling, like, I'm sorry, and this might be like a bit of a spoilers for many of the people here. I'm sorry if it is. Well, you know, well, with the, not spoilers for the series, spoilers for my video. Like when you're, I'll just say this. Comparing, like, let's say, like, early Naruto, early Ichigo, and early Luffy, like, first arc for each of them, Luffy kind of fucking solos. Like, unironically. Like, no, like, unironically. Like, I'm out here looking back at Naruto throughout, like, the early portions of this year. I'm rereading it, right? And I see that Sasuke, and I'm hearing, like, all these crazy things about, like, Sasuke, Naruto, and all these kids. And I'm like, Sasuke is making holes with an attack through these giant stones, right? Through like these giant boulders. Sasuke's making all these like really large holes while training just before the Sasuke retrieval arc, right? He's making like these massive holes and everything. It's crazy and shit. All with Chidori. He's super tired. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool and all. But Luffy, a year before he sets out to sea, and we see this in the Bartholomew Kuma flashback, Luffy is out here almost one-shotting a mountain.
Yep.
Like,
and that's
I get it.
Even began.
Yeah, no, that's before the series. That's prior to chapter fucking 1. Well, in between chapter 1 and the end of chapter 1. But the point is, that shit is day 1 Luffy destroying these giant rock formations with an attack one whole year's worth less of training, or at least running around in the fucking trenches of a fucking island. I don't know, man. I'm like, can they, like, this is a version of Sasuke that's also reached Rock Lee's speed, and even then, I'm like, he should be, like, around the speed of sound and shit. Luffy blitzed a fucking explosion. Like, while being punched, blocking, and the guy swinging the blade, within all of that, Luffy punched a battle spear that caused an explosion 5 times. He also shattered steel with his bare fists. This isn't even Arlong Park, Luffy. This is fucking, Baratier.
Oh, was it orange? Yeah.
Baratier, yeah. Like, what the fuck are we talking about, man?
It is. Like, 100.
Ichigo is losing to
like,
yeah.
I actually feel like more early One Piece scaling should be done because, like,
no, yeah, I have to focus on more of that.
A lot of people think that One Piece, they only got strong when like New World. No, early One Piece is some of the
Mm-hmm.
strongest thing ever. And like, since you spoiled something for for your future videos, I'll spoil something from
Yeah.
a couple of the videos I've been working on as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the argument that Amaterasu is as hot as the sun because of a data book statement.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, whatever. In One Piece, like a lot of people aren't actually thinking how busted Logias are.
Yeah.
What is the temperature of lightning, Ian?
It's hotter than the sun.
The temperature of lightning is hotter than the sun.
And there's a whole character that shoots Luffy with it.
She's lightning. And again, a lot of people will be like, "Oh my god, but I can't believe that." Blah. Again, and let's just step back for a second here.
Yeah.
Wiper's burn bazooka, right, is about blue flames, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's about 2,000. That's about 2,000 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Right. You will go back and you'll look. The burn bazooka is vaporizing like trees
Everything.
and shit like
yeah.
that.
And Luffy's eating
Completely
it.
vaporizing. And Luffy's eating it.
Not
Not only
just
that.
It's also a massive
only
blast.
Yeah, not only that, if you look at what the burn bazooka did to Nora, the giant snake, it couldn't even scratch him. Go back to that. The burn bazooka that is over 2,000 degrees Celsius, that is clearly vaporizing things and cannot even scratch Nora, the giant snake. What did Enel do? Enel, with a single lightning blast, fried Nora. Again, so even if you didn't want to believe that lightning is at the temperature of lightning, which is silly because it is, you already have in-world reference that would show you without a doubt that Enel's lightning is at least greater than 2,000 degrees Celsius. And these are the things that early One Piece characters are just eating, right?
Yeah.
They're just eating these things.
Luffy is a fucking animal, man.
And again, I recently made
He's
like
also
an internal
attacking through it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't focus so much on Luffy there, more so because then you could make some argument about Luffy being a robber and blah 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 blah. Technically, you shouldn't be immune to the heat of the lightning.
Yeah,
but
you
could make
shouldn't.
the case that you should make
If
the
he's
case
a-
that lightning blah blah.
Or you could also just make the case that like if Luffy's able to tank the burn bazooka, then he should have high amounts of like
No, but I'm
heat
saying-
resistance and
but
shit. Yeah.
The burn bazooka definitely, but the other characters were tanking Enel's lightning, right?
Yeah.
Like exactly. And then there's the other thing that what I recently made like something called the internal destruction problem, where I talk about like, durability bypass and
Yes.
What a lot of people don't consider as well is that like lightning, the main mechanism that makes lightning deadly is because it fries your inside. That is why lightning is so deadly. So when you see people like Gunfall getting a shock straight through the brain, or when you see Zoro, like it is actually shown. You can go back and look. When you see the lightning bird going directly to Zoro, they're not just getting easy attacks. Their literal insides are being fried. Or when you see Enel, even something like the projectile that completely vaporized a portion of the giant beanstalk, and Enel is taking that and then restarting his heart.
Yeah.
Another thing that people don't realize that Dory actually swallowed an explosion, like an explode.
No,
like
yeah,
with
he
the
literally,
his
he literally ate it.
Explosion. Literally. So way before Luffy, way before internal Haki, even not talking about projectiles, a literal explosion
on the inside of his body.
Doors. Yes. So I'm just like, think about these things. Think about these things. These characters are way more powerful than we can possibly explain. And it's been so hard trying to like bring out the language, bring out these things, trying to show people like, bro, like just because you aren't seeing these big ass explode, like a guy is literally imagine a bomb literally went off inside of your stomach. That is what happened to
he really ate this shit.
Exactly.
He really ate this shit.
So like, I would really encourage you to like go like the pre-time skip, like, and just like, because that's what I plan to do. That I mean, if I
there's even conversations about how not Sanji, the Thousand Sunny. This is actually one from my mods where like the Thousand Sunny is capable of withstanding the force. Sorry, not the Thousand Sunny. The Going Merry is able to withstand the force of whatchamacallit, a knock-up stream, which has the power to literally rip an island out of the ground.
Yep, exactly. And
yeah,
like,
no, it's crazy.
Other things people don't talk about is like even some little things like, I mean, well, we could get into, Inel surviving in space where presumably there's no oxygen, so
Yeah.
Logia physiology type shit. But putting that aside, like going up 10 kilometers, people are going up 10 kilometers, like the oxygen, like if you do some real world kind of surgery, like
Mm-hmm.
there's basically no oxygen in our real world above 10 kilometers. Like,
Right.
now obviously this might be different for One Piece, but the key thing is in the series itself, it mentions when they went to Skypiea that the oxygen thinned out. So
Yeah.
we know that this is being that they're operating on less oxygen.
Yeah.
And they're still performing at the level they do. Like there is so many
Much.
things.
Yeah, no, it's I feel like
But
part
it's
of it is
just
just
like
that I feel like part of it, as long as it's such a long series, it makes these things harder to find. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's up to
yeah.
like scalers like you and me to like really bring this stuff forward. I'm definitely gonna make some more early pre time skip stuff. The scaling is definitely the scaling definitely has shown that like these characters have been downplayed for a while. I mean, Luffy legitimately took down a guy that, granted, the arc Maxim was generating the clouds for him, had the capacity to create a giant Raigo that was going to wipe out a country. Like, can we just talk about how Enel was going to wipe out a country, and that feat alone was going to be more impressive than anything we've seen a tailed beast do?
100%.
Barring maybe the fucking Ten Tails, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, if the Ten Tails is like the marker for guys that can go past Enel in terms of like destructive capacity, I don't know, man. Like,
Bro, no, it's just like I look at things like even if you were to just go further, you're just like not Kizaru, sorry, Aokiji and Akainu literally changed the goddamn climate of an island, and
yeah,
it's still that
permanently.
way 2 years later.
Yeah.
What thing in Naruto could possibly come? It's just like, I mean, there's one. The only thing in Naruto that goes above things in One Piece is Tanera splitting the moon. But it's just like, putting that aside, it's just like,
Yeah,
bruh,
but even then, it's like
try-
you can argue that you can always argue that like if these guys were continental by the time they reached fucking Dressrosa, you can always enter through
Yeah.
like even implied multipliers that like they're above moon level. So it's like
100%, 100%, 100%. I had this discussion with someone in my Discord.
Mhm.
I don't really talk to most of the people in my Discord, but I was talking to one person. I'm just like, bro, like One Piece characters, like people have been so kind of restrained that, like, not afraid to say that, like, to me, One Piece was continental from Fishman Island.
yeah,
From
you can
Fishman
argue it.
Island.
No, you can argue that. You can argue that.
Like 100%, 100%, and it's silly to pretend otherwise in my mind. But it's just like One Piece has been so restrained for so long that like most people are even afraid to even verbalize this thought. Like
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my god, if I say this, am I just gonna come off as biased? No, like One Piece is just stronger than these people think. Like, come on, no. I'm just like, come on.
And it's kind of crazy too, because it's like yeah, because it's like we're talking about like moon level shit for like the upper echelons of the fucking verse, and we're still talking about like One Piece characters that aren't even reached their peaks. Luffy's not at his peak yet. Kaido and Big Mom,
Yeah.
you might say that like they're at their peak, sure, even if you want to say like they're only moon level, but it's also like I mean, they're not the final villains. They're like the 2/3 waypoint villains. You know what I mean? Like there's still a good ways to go, and not just that. Like somebody actually brought up the 100 shinobis powering up that fucking cannon to like wipe out the moon. I feel like people looked at that once and said like, holy shit, like it just takes the energy of 100 shinobi to like beat. But like, here's what it is: you're saying that it takes the energy of the chakra of 100 shinobis to blow up the moon, but have we not considered the weapon? You know, the thing that is going to do the thing. Because the fucking moon, from what I remember reading, sorry, not the moon, the weapon wasn't going to destroy the moon. It was going to blast it to another dimension. Yeah, it was going to teleport it to another dimension.
It's the thing is actually called the Chakra teleportation cannon.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to destroy them.
So it was only gonna be a hack based thing. It wasn't even gonna be like it was gonna be hack based. It was never going to be like pure attack potency. Sure, the 100 ninja having the chakra of volume or whatever to charge up a weapon that can teleport the moon, that's fine. That's completely fine. That doesn't equate to raw attack potency.
Exactly. And even if it was going to destroy the moon, you can't just argue that, oh, just because it required X amount of chakra to destroy the moon, therefore that anyone with X or greater chakra, they must be moon level. That's just silly. Because you have to take into account the actual how people actually carry out the attacks themselves. Right? It's not just like, oh, X amount of possible chakra means I should just automatically scale the character. It's just yeah, it's just that it's the same thing you'll hear people say, oh, the Temptail had a planet-sized amount of chakra,
Yeah.
therefore he must be planet level.
Planetary, yeah.
Like, these are just bad scalers. It's just like
In addition
looking
to
for
when like
anything.
yeah, because the amount of because this was actually a discussion that I was having with my mods where it was like, can we talk about, because I was like, yo guys, real quick, do you guys think, and I started off the question very specifically, you might have been, it might be a bit leading, but I asked the question first. I asked, yo, so quick thing, do you guys think that that the amount of chakra that you have equates to how powerful you are, right? Does chakra volumes equate to overall power output, right? And they were like, no, not necessarily. And I'm like, okay, so Naruto gaining the second half of Kurama doesn't inherently mean that he's stronger, right? Because splitting up Kurama's chakra, could technically be argued that it didn't make him weaker. It only meant that he had half of the amount of chakra that he can utilize, which works. I'm not against Kurama being twice as strong with or having the second half of Kurama making him twice as powerful. I don't have an issue with that. But what I'm saying is that, like, what would then be the reasoning for him being stronger? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean the argument here, the proper argument here is that it more chakra would allow. So, for example, let's take the case. Let's take the case of like Kakashi can't do the Shadow Clone Jutsu because he just doesn't have the chakra reserves. So more chakra allows the possibility for more powerful jutsus, you know, at a theoretical level. But the problem comes in where people say, oh, just because he got more chakra, more chakra, he's inherently more powerful. No, chakra just allows you to be more powerful, but it
allows you to put in more energy into a jutsu.
Exactly.
But even then, the jutsu itself changes.
Makes you more powerful.
Yeah. But even
it doesn't automatically mean you can scale to a certain level. That's the problem where most people
it's like trying to argue that, like, for example, like Naruto can make 1,000 shadow clones. He has more chakra than Kakashi, therefore his Rasengan's more powerful than Chidori. Like, both can be true, sure. Like his Rasengan could very well be more powerful, at least at that point, than Kakashi's Chidori. I mean, Lightning Blade. But that's not. But it might be stronger because of a feat rather than because it's the chakra quantity.
Yeah, you need proof of it. Like just having more chakra, you can't just say, okay, you're automatically at this level. Like that's just it's just people just trying to look for a way to just like upscale their favorite character.
And then it's also like, and then one of the arguments that I really hate hearing is that, like, well, chakra, and I'll leave this as like the last one, but it's like when chakra, when I say, well, for example, Madara versus Sukuna, I think I made a very good argument in that video for Sukuna, right? The basic argument just being Madara gets his head torn off, right? He just gets his head completely sliced in half. There's nothing that he can do, right? Especially if they both start talking shit, Sukuna's cutting his head in an instant. He always goes for the head. And it's like, well, okay. I had a whole point with this, my bad. Oh, where it's like...
You're good.
Where it's like, one of the things that I mentioned was that, okay, for example, Sukuna can survive being impaled, stabbed, getting brain damage, having his heart being crushed, having his literal soul being damaged. He can survive all of these things. And Madara died to a sword stab to the chest.
Yep.
What am I? Oh, but Eon, no. That sword was imbued with chakra. Where was it? Why was it imbued with chakra? When was that ever? So when Sasuke, I don't know, when Sasuke was performing swordsmanship against Madara, his sword is being, Madara can be sliced up by a sword. His sword was being imbued by chakra. I believe it. I believe his blade can be infused with chakra. I believe that 100%. But Stein, tell me something. Every time that a weapon is imbued with chakra, what do we see around that weapon?
You see the blue
you see a blue stream of chakra, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, for example, revived Madara, for example, with Sage Mode. We know Sage Mode increases. The ability to your durability, right? We know it does. he was still pierced by Sasuke's blade. He was later crushed by multiple tailed beasts. He survived it 100%. But it was a different kind of damage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where the difference I'm trying to bring here is that like there's also a difference between like slashing attacks, piercing attacks, or just like a bunch of fucking giant tails trying to crush you, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. I think where the problem would come in if you say that a character has a certain level of durability, like let's say you thought that Madara has a continental level durability, and you think that Sukuna's sword slashes are at best, let's say island level, then you'd say that Sukuna can't damage Madara, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the contention that most people probably have with you. They probably think that Sukuna is just not at Madara, can't pierce Madara's durability.
Not necessarily, because it's like, and you know what's crazy? They might have the issue. I understand it, and they might have the issue, but the thing is that like the durability comes all from the Susanoo. Madara does not have good durability. Like what? Like the one time that he got crushed by like an actual attack, the one time he got hit multiple times by like an actual combo of like hits, he had Sage Mode active, and he was left bleeding from it, like his entire body. Like, do I believe that the tailed beasts with just swinging themselves, just hitting him once? Do I think that they have the power to like destroy a mountain by just punching through it? I've seen them do that with tailed beast bombs. Do I agree that like if a tailed beast were to like, I don't know, like they did before, where they did that whole combo where like they bashed into him and everything? Do I think that's a mountain level attack? Not necessarily. I don't think that the damage output is mountain, and even then Madara has Sage Mode, for example. But like regular Madara, he has nothing, right? So when I say like Sukuna's slashes could cut Madara's head clean through, it's not because I think that Sukuna's attack is way so high that he can't do it. It's because Madara does not have the feats for it, right?
No, I mean that's where most people would disagree with you. Most people would say that Madara has at least a continental level durability even outside of his Susanoo. And like I've flirted with the idea of maybe Naruto characters are weaker to sword slashes than physical attack, but I haven't gone into that scaling much. I genuinely don't know.
It's not so much like if they're weak to it or not. It's more so that like different kinds of damage, different kinds of attacks do different kinds of damage, right? Can we agree on that? Like a blunt force attack, like the type of, for example, look at it like with Luffy, for example, right, where he's affected by slashing attacks. He's affected by them much more than like blunt force attacks, right? It's kind of like that difference. Well, no, it's because of the devil fruit, sure, but it's because of the devil fruit, sure. But like,
I don't like that. I don't like because it reinforces a stereotype that I've been fighting.
That Luffy is
life.
That Luffy
is weak.
Oh no, he's not. No, he's not. He took Kaido's demolition twister, but it's just as an example that like they are more effective.
Someone will hear what you just said and be like, "Oh my god, yeah, no, listen, no." But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. That like for example, if a character were to make like let's say Madara's Susanoo ribcage, right, where it's like Tsunade with her brute force is able to crack it, but let's say a swordsman swinging a sword would probably break the sword. You know what I mean? It's like it would one could argue it might be more susceptible to like large blunt force attacks than it is to like maybe let's say like a slashing attack as an example, right? Not to say that it is the case, but just to say used to use that as an example.
No, but the argument would be that Madara has continental durability to blunt force as well as
yeah. No, 100%.
That would be the argument.
No, 100%. But like he himself, that would be the argument for his Susanoo, not for him.
No, that'd be the argument for him. That's how people would make the argument for
no, people would, and that's the issue that I have. People make the argument for like, that like, oh, Madara's head is so tough that like if Sukuna sent a slash to it, like, at best he would just like get like a tiny cut or he would only like bleed from it. It's like, no, there is nothing within the context of the story that would make me believe that if he got hit by a flying invisible slash, his body would still be held together by it.
I mean, you're gonna be fighting against like a
I've already been fighting it, man.
I'd be interested. I mean, I might have watched your Sukuna video, but I don't think I saw the actual scaling because you'd have to prove this. And it couldn't
the only thing I necessarily had to prove with the video, I'll just give you the context. The only thing I necessarily had to prove in the video is that as long as Madara there is no evidence to show that Madara durability is equal to that of his Susanoo, right? And especially in the most logical form of the fight that I think would go down, which is because Sukuna fights efficiently. Unlike Madara, Sukuna fights almost completely efficiently, right? Where like most of the decisions that he makes are in most cases like the right call, right? He analyzes his opponent, he figures out everything that they're gonna do, and he always goes straight for the kill. He doesn't play around. The reason why he couldn't kill anyone or he didn't kill anyone at the end was because either they had RCT or they left the battlefield, someone took their place so that they could get healed, right? But the point here is that, for example, like if Madara and Sukuna just start off a fight, he just goes for the head. Madara's durability, I have no reason to believe that Madara would just charge up his entire body with chakra from the start.
Let me ask you a question. So do you think that would you, let's say that you have Sukuna's sword slash at just so I have something here at country level.
Yeah.
Like would you grant that Naruto's durability is country level? Like Naruto body is country.
Naruto's base durability on its own?
Yeah, is
no,
least,
I would not. I have no reason to believe that. There's no piece of evidence that I've seen so far that would make me believe that.
So I mean, how about like Sage Mode Naruto or Naruto in his chakra cloaks?
Naruto has chakra cloaks and stuff like that. Even then, it's like, for example, Naruto's able to be stabbed by a sword while in KCM, right? Yeah. So he also has to be six path sage mode. So he also has to be conscious of where like he's going to, like, it's not just the fact of like whether or not they're like having this chakra cloak up or whatever. It's the fact that in this case, sage mode, it's the case that like it's the case that like the durability is affected by whether or not the character even knows that they're getting hit, right?
Okay, let's say Naruto, six path sage mode Naruto.
I think he could tank Sukuna's slashes. Him, if he, but I would also argue that he could because he would sense the slash coming. So he would. Let's
say he just stands there.
Oh, he just stands there. He doesn't. He just stands here. He doesn't. Okay, so if Sukuna, Sukuna takes it. I think he could get his head cut off. If he could get stabbed by a regular sword and bleed from his mouth, I think his head could be slashed off. If he's taking it on, I believe his head gets cut off. Most people would say no.
Most people. That's the uphill battle that you'd have to fight, because I likely agree with you.
Yeah.
I know the sword you're talking about in Naruto,
and
where Sasuke's sword slipped out of his hand and stabbed Naruto. The argument most people have there is, but yeah, that's the uphill battle that you'd have to fight, because most people would be like, oh no, Naruto's durability is
it's like no, it's not constantly, like you could say it's with planetary. I am sure you could Wonder Bread, it is just a regular sword. It can emit chakra, that is just a regular sword. The sword of Kusanagi being able to the blade of Kusanagi being stated to cut all things in existence or be able to cut anything. I'm not taking that seriously. It's just wanking though. It's just a statement that's used to give the weapon some kind of lore to it. It's not actually true. There are things it cannot cut.
Yeah, anybody with reading comprehension knows that's not the actual case.
Can we stop about JJK? Okay. Damn. Yeah.
I mean, I do plan to eventually I know the gist of everything that happens.
Sorry,
with
it was just a comment. Yeah.
I just don't I know. I just don't I haven't gone deep into its scaling as yet.
That's fair. I mean, the scaling for JJK is interesting. I do think that like they actually play much more nicely with Naruto characters than Naruto characters play with One Piece characters. Like they definitely scale above. Don't get me wrong, but like but like JJK does put up a very good fight, especially Gojo and Sukuna.
Yeah. No, so Gojo I think is also another candidate who can, because I don't know what is the response any character in Naruto has to Infinite Void?
I argue based off of I base all my arguments off of non-verse equalization. So if it's any character that isn't Sukuna, domain expansions do not work.
Do you need wait? Again, I'm not thoroughly versed in JJK.
Yeah. You need cursed energy. You need to have cursed energy. It's the same like thing like Genjutsu. You need to have the power system in order for it to work. Because the mechanics behind a domain expansion and how it has its auto target short hit effect is that it auto targets because it's picking up on cursed energy. That's why they don't affect, let's say, like inanimate objects. Or in Gojo's case, he has to be touching the person, right? There are ways to like solo target individuals within a domain, but you specifically have to ping in on like their cursed energy.
So you're saying that Gojo can't just touch, let's say Madara, for example, and activate the infinite void. Madara needs to
No.
have cursed energy.
Madara would need to have cursed energy, and if he touches him, he'd
Okay.
actually be unaffected by it. That would be another thing, but don't worry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sukuna's is the only case where they auto target and they hit
Great.
everything because one of the slashes is
It just
specifically
slashes.
no, yeah, it specifically targets objects without cursed energy.
Okay. All right. I'll eventually read. So I'll eventually
No, Madara
get there.
cannot see wind changes. There is no statement within the entire context of Naruto or any of its supplementary sources that imply that Sharingan users can see changes in he can't see changes in air pressure. There's never been a single example in all of Naruto where a Sharingan user can see changes in air pressure. I do not believe it. He gets his head cut off every single time, 10 times out of 10. He can also send the attack out without ever even having moving a muscle.
The argument there wouldn't be that it wouldn't be that it is specifically stated that they can see wind pressure. It would be that the Sharingans provides that increased visual acuity, because I think there's one specific panel where it even pointed out that the Sharingan can see like even literal atoms. Like it was seen.
I've never seen if you can give me like I've read through all of Naruto this year. There was never any statement like that.
Yeah, it was against it was Sasuke versus the guy who explodes.
Oh no. So I hear what you're saying. He's able to see things on a cellular level, which is true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but it's because they emit chakra. It's because to Sasuke it looked like a cloud of chakra was nearing him.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right. Which and in this case, he also can't see cursed energy, right? So the argument here is that Madara would be able to see it by looking at Sukuna's, let's say maybe like assuming that Sukuna's doing something by like maybe moving a hand, pointing at him, or flicking his wrist. But Sukuna is also stated and proven that he can activate his curse technique without even moving a muscle. Whenever like a jutsu is used, there is usually a trail or a form of chakra around it, right? Like the jutsu itself, whether it's a wind style jutsu, water style jutsu, etc., might be seeing water, but it's also a mass of chakra to the user that's seeing it, right? That is why Madara can see things like wind style attacks. That is why, it's why they're able to see like maybe like potential when did Madara see air pressure? The air pressure that guy was shooting wasn't just any kind of air pressure. Those are literal cannons of air that were visible. Let's not.
It's like a air current. Like that's literally
it's like an actual current of air. Like when Sukuna sends out a slash, they are literally invisible. They are stated multiple times to be invisible. This is why I say that he has to see changes in air pressure, not an actual cannon of air that anyone can see. Sukuna's attacks are he even mentions when he's fighting Mahoraga and he's laughing, ha 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 ha, you can see them, can't you? You can see my slashes, Mahoraga. He made a massive deal about Mahoraga being able to see them. So yeah, no. My argument is very simple. Sukuna, in most cases against many Naruto characters, besides them that might have like actual, not sensory precognition based on muscle movement, but actual feeling based sensory abilities like, let's say, nature energy. That's why I can argue that Sukuna can essentially cut the head off of any character that cannot sense literal changes in air pressure. He just cuts their head off, they never see the attack coming, and they have no idea that he sends out slashes. That's just basically my argument for like Sukuna versus the Naruto verse. If they don't have Sage Mode, I basically have no, because with Sage Mode you can basically make the argument. But with Sukuna, the attacks, they'll never know when the attacks are coming. It's just one of those issues. It's like, how do you prep for an attack you quite literally cannot see?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I mean, I probably need to read a bit more about this myself to refresh up on Naruto stuff to really, but I get what you're saying.
All right. Man, this has been a fun chat, dude. I really enjoyed it. I'd be down to do more, even if you're taking like a break from content. Just let me know, man. I'd always be down to chat with you again.
Yeah, no, of course. Whenever I come back.
For sure.
we could definitely make this more recurring.
We can even like
Yeah,
try to
thanks for
collab on
having me.
yeah, for sure. And likewise. And thanks for hitting me up about this. And if anything, let me know if you'd ever be down to just make some content whenever you get back. If you want to make some content together, I can put any video I have aside to like, you know, make one for you, make one for me.
All right.
All right.
We'll talk more. All right.
Have a good one, Stein.
See you guys.
Have a wonderful rest of your night.
All righty. Bye.
Bye. I do have to go, guys. It is about that time for me. I do have to go take care of some other stuff. Also, I have to eat something. I'm starving. Listen, Madara's not too fast. The best thing you can argue for him, if you want, if I'm being like generous, is like you can argue FTL light speed to FTL reaction time. And even then, Madara's never going to see the swords, the slashes coming. It'd be like him running to the left without knowing what the hell Sukun is shooting. He would never know that the slashes are coming. For those of you that are in Discord, in our Discord, you guys can join. There'll be a stream going up, and tomorrow will be not we, because I don't think I'm gonna be busy. My mods with some other viewers are going to be watching movies together. I think a movie together on Saturday. So if you guys want to. A shadow clone, substitution clone? He's never making that, bro. Why would he ever do that? Anyway, I will catch you all in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Peace out. Oh, and thank you to Omi if you are here. Thank you to Omi and Halo Jeff, Handsome Jeff for the super chats. Thank you guys for the, I think it was 25 Omi, and I think it was 2 from you, Jeff. Thank you guys so much. Keep running. I'm not running. I really do have to head out, but you can believe that. Have a wonderful rest of your night.